For centuries, there have been whispers, stories of ancient civilizations, mysterious phenomena, and anomalies that defy logic. Questions that have lingered in the minds of scientists, unanswered and unresolved, like shadows that stretch across time, waiting to be understood. Some of these mysteries have puzzled the brightest minds, leaving even the most seasoned researchers stumped, their best theories crumbling in the face of the unknown. What if the answers we seek are not as simple as they seem? What if the mysteries we're chasing aren't simply unsolved, but are clues, deliberate markers left by forces far beyond our understanding, from ancient artifacts that shouldn't exist to phenomena that warp the laws of nature itself? These enigmas offer glimpses into a world we can barely comprehend. These are not just riddles of the past. They are challenges that test the very boundaries of human knowledge. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the unsolved mysteries that continue to baffle scientists, defy explanation, and stir our deepest curiosity. In the sun-drenched hills of modern-day Syria, the ruins of a once thriving city lie buried beneath the earth, preserving its secrets for millennia. Known as Ugarit, this Bronze Age metropolis flourished as a vital hub for trade and knowledge. Situated near the Mediterranean coast, Ugarit connected the civilizations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Hittites, becoming a center of commerce, art, and cultural exchange. Discovered in the 1920s, Ugarit's ruins offered a glimpse into a lost world. Inscriptions carved into stone in a unique script and artifacts like finely crafted jewelry and pottery spoke to the sophistication of the society and its broad connections to other ancient cultures. Yet Ugarit's story takes a darker turn. Around 1200 BC, the city was destroyed in a single violent night. Its once bustling streets lined with grand temples and palaces were abruptly abandoned. Despite extensive archaeological exploration, the cause of this sudden and complete destruction remains unclear. What led to the swift downfall of a city that had been at the heart of the ancient world? Scholars have proposed several theories, including invasion, internal conflict, and natural disasters, but the true reason for Ugarit's fall remains a mystery. Ugarit was a powerful city-state thriving for centuries as a cultural and commercial center. It had a strategic location which made it a destination for merchants and travelers from across the ancient world. Thousands of clay tablets inscribed with cuneiform script provide detailed insights into the city's administration, religion, and daily life. These tablets describe a well-organized society with a strong cultural and economic foundation. Ugarit's people were skilled in various crafts, including metalwork, pottery, and textile production. They engaged in trade with Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Iron region, and the city acted as a cultural crossroads, fostering the exchange of goods and ideas. Despite its prosperity, Ugarit's sudden and total destruction raises questions. Archaeological evidence shows no signs of gradual decay or prolonged siege, suggesting that the city's collapse happened abruptly. The ruins show that buildings were scorched, pottery shattered, and human remains found in unnatural positions, as though the people were caught off guard while going about their daily routines. This immediate collapse has prompted various theories regarding what caused the city's demise. One widely discussed explanation is invasion. The period around 1200 BC saw widespread upheaval across the ancient world, known as the Late Bronze Age collapse. The Sea Peoples, a group of mysterious raiders, are often blamed for attacking and destroying cities across the eastern Mediterranean. Many scholars believe that Uga could have been one of the cities hit by these invaders. However, there is no conclusive evidence of an invasion at Ugarit. The ruins show no signs of large-scale destruction caused by an enemy army, and there are no clear indications of a military conquest. Another possibility is that Ugarit fell due to internal strife, such as a civil war or rebellion. Some historians suggest that conflicts within the city led to its destruction. However, this theory also lacks strong evidence. There are no signs of prolonged siege warfare or battle damage to the city's walls, which would be expected if the city were torn apart by internal conflict. The absence of such evidence makes this theory seem less plausible. A third theory proposes that Ugarit's destruction was caused by a natural disaster. The region is seismically active and earthquakes are not uncommon in the area. Some have speculated that a major earthquake or even a volcanic eruption could have struck Ugar, causing its sudden collapse. However, there is no direct evidence of seismic activity at the site. Archaeologists have not found the typical signs of earthquake damage, such as cracked foundations or collapsed walls. This lack of evidence makes it unlikely that a natural disaster was the cause of Ugarit's fall. Some fringe theories suggest more extraordinary causes for the city's destruction. One idea proposes that Ugarit was destroyed by a comet or meteorite. Ancient cultures often viewed celestial phenomena, like comets and meteor showers, as omens or signs of impending doom. While this theory is intriguing, there is no physical evidence to support it, and it remains speculative. Another theory involves divine retribution, a concept rooted in many ancient cultures. In this view, the gods could have destroyed Ugarit as punishment for some transgression. While this idea has historical precedent, it lacks concrete evidence and relies on religious beliefs rather than tangible facts. Despite the various theories, no single explanation has been universally accepted. It's possible that a combination of factors such as economic instability, political turmoil, or environmental stress contributed to Ugarit's collapse. The true cause may lie buried beneath the ruins, waiting to be discovered by future archaeologists. As excavation continues, the mystery of Ugarit's fall may one day be solved. The ruins of Ugarit serve as a powerful reminder of both the achievements and fragility of ancient civilizations. The city's rise and fall illustrate how even the most prosperous societies can be undone by unexpected events. Ugarit's mystery persists, but its legacy endures. The discoveries made in its ruins continue to shed light on a sophisticated and influential culture, and its story remains a source of fascination for historians and archaeologists alike. As we explore the remains of Ugarit, we are reminded that while the cause of its destruction may still be unknown, its contributions to the ancient world remain invaluable. As we continue our journey through the mysteries that have perplexed scientists and historians alike, we find ourselves in the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, where another enigma lies buried beneath the sands of time. The sudden abandonment of Telra, a sprawling archaeological site located in modern-day Syria, was once a thriving city, flourishing between 4500 and 2000 BC. The city was a key urban center during the early dynastic period, its streets lined with monumental structures, temples, and an intricate network of walls. It was a hub of trade and culture, its influence extending across the ancient world. But as the city grew in size and complexity, something equally dramatic occurred. Telra was abandoned with little explanation. One day, its bustling streets were empty, its grand structures left in ruin. The abandonment of Telra stands as one of the great unresolved questions in the study of ancient civilizations. Archaeologists have uncovered much about the city, its impressive architecture, its sophisticated drainage systems, and its rich material culture. But there is no clear explanation for why, at its peak, its inhabitants would simply vanish. In the layers of Telra's ruins, there are signs of a sudden and abrupt end. Unlike cities that experience slow declines or were overtaken by invaders, Telra's collapse appears more mysterious. Archaeological evidence suggests that the city was abandoned almost overnight. The layout of the city shows no sign of warfare. And while there is evidence of a brief, intense fire in certain areas, there is no definitive trace of large-scale destruction. No signs of siege, no massive destruction from foreign armies, just the eerie silence of a city left behind. So what could have caused this rapid and unexplained departure? One theory suggests that a sudden environmental change might have played a role. Mesopotamia, while fertile, was not immune to the forces of nature. Some scientists speculate that a significant change in the local climate, perhaps a prolonged drought or a shift in the river's course, could have made the area unsustainable for large populations. In fact, other ancient cities in the region, such as Uruk, experienced similar declines that have been linked to environmental factors. Could a sudden environmental catastrophe have been the tipping point for Telra? Yet, despite the plausibility of environmental collapse, the evidence for this theory remains inconclusive. While Telbra's location on the banks of the Kabur River suggests that water availability was once abundant, there is no clear sign of a drastic environmental shift that would have made the region inhospitable. The city's sophisticated water management systems seem to have functioned well, and archaeological findings suggest that the river had not changed course dramatically enough to explain such an abrupt abandonment. Another possibility is internal conflict. Could a series of social, political, or economic upheavals have led to the city's collapse? Given the size and complexity of Telra, internal power struggles or rebellion could have torn apart the social fabric of the city. Perhaps the ruling elite were overthrown, or internal factions waged war against each other. However, there is little evidence to suggest that Telra experienced the kind of sustained civil unrest that would have led to its rapid abandonment. The third theory, one that delves into more speculative waters, points to an invasion by foreign forces. While there is no archaeological evidence of a foreign army at Telbrak, the timing of its abandonment coincides with a period of instability in the broader region. Could marauding invaders have swept through Mesopotamia, decimating cities like Telra and forcing its inhabitants to flee? Again, the lack of typical signs of warfare, such as defensive fortifications or evidence of large-scale violence, casts doubt on this theory. As with many ancient mysteries, there are more fringe explanations that border on the extraordinary. Could Tel Brae have been abandoned due to a natural disaster? Some suggest that a large earthquake, a volcanic eruption, or even an impact event such as a comet or meteorite could have caused a sudden and devastating shift in the city's fate. While intriguing, these ideas remain speculative with no physical evidence to support them. The possibility that such an event could have occurred without leaving traces in the archaeological record seems unlikely, but it's a question worth pondering. Perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that the true cause of Telbrak's abandonment is something we have yet to understand. Something hidden within the ruins, still waiting to be discovered. The city's sudden disappearance may not be the result of a single event, but the culmination of multiple complex factors that remain elusive. Could the answer be buried in the layers of earth that still lie untouched by modern excavation? What remains clear is that Telra, like so many ancient cities, holds more questions than answers, and as the sands of time continue to shift, we can only wonder what secrets might still lie hidden beneath the ruins, waiting for the day when the mysteries of its fall will finally be revealed. As we continue our exploration of the great unsolved mysteries of the ancient world, we turn our attention to the sea, where an enigma unlike any other left its mark on the ancient Mediterranean. The Sea Peoples, mysterious invaders whose origins remain shrouded in uncertainty, swept across the eastern Mediterranean during the late 13th and early 12th centuries BC, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Their raids, which targeted powerful empires and coastal cities, remain one of the most perplexing and unresolved events in ancient history. The Mediterranean during the Late Bronze Age was a region of great cultural and economic achievement. Civilizations such as the Egyptians, Hittites, and Minyans thrived along its shores. The trade routes were bustling, the cities were flourishing, and the empires were strong. But in the blink of an eye, this world began to unravel. Cities that had stood for centuries were suddenly abandoned or destroyed. The Mycenaean palaces were burned. The Hittite Empire collapsed. And Egypt itself, once thought invincible, faced significant turmoil. What caused this sudden collapse? The Sea Peoples are believed to have been one of the primary catalysts of this widespread destruction. Yet despite numerous references to these mysterious invaders in ancient texts, their true identity and the nature of their attacks remain unclear. The Egyptians, who had their own encounters with the Sea Peoples, recorded the raids on the walls of their temples, most notably in the famous Medinet Habu inscription. These carvings depict fierce battles between Egyptian forces and the Sea Peoples, showing them as a coalition of foreign groups, some with unfamiliar clothing and weapons arriving by ship. But who were they?
Where did they come from?
The theories surrounding the Sea Peoples' origins are as varied as they are speculative. Some scholars suggest they were displaced peoples, groups of migrants or refugees who had been forced to flee from the collapsing civilizations of the Eastern Mediterranean. The upheaval caused by environmental factors such as drought or famine may have pushed these people to take to the seas, raiding and pillaging coastal cities as they sought new lands. Others believe the Sea Peoples may have been mercenaries or pirate groups from the Iron or the Anatolian coasts. The lack of conclusive evidence makes any theory about their origins speculative at best, but while their origins remain elusive, the impact of the Sea Peoples' raids is undeniable. The destruction they caused was catastrophic. The cities of Ugarit, Hattusa, and Mykina were among those that fell. Entire civilizations crumbled under the weight of these invasions. What drove these seemingly nomadic groups to attack well-established, powerful empires? And why did their raids result in such widespread devastation? Some believe the Sea Peoples were merely opportunistic invaders taking advantage of weakened empires in their prime, while others wonder if their attacks were the result of a larger coordinated effort, perhaps a response to the socio-political and economic changes sweeping the region. One theory suggests that the Sea Peoples were driven by a desire for territorial expansion, as some raiders were believed to have established their own settlements along the coastlines of the Levant and Palestine. The widespread destruction they wrought could have been part of a deliberate strategy to weaken or eliminate their enemies, clearing the way for their own settlements. Yet, this theory raises another question. Why did these raiders seem to vanish almost as quickly as they appeared? The Sea Peoples' raids were intense but relatively short-lived after their attacks. The historical record on the Sea Peoples disappears almost entirely. What happened to them? Did they assimilate into the cultures they once ravaged, or did they simply fade away into history? Could it be that the Sea Peoples were not one unified group at all, but a collection of different peoples, each with its own motivations and tactics, coming together for a brief but violent campaign? Evidence suggests that the Sea Peoples were not a single cohesive force, but rather a diverse coalition of groups with different languages, customs, and agendas. Some may have been displaced by internal turmoil within their own regions, while others were perhaps opportunists seeking to exploit the chaos of the times. Another more fringe theory suggests that the Sea Peoples were not human at all, but rather mythologized invaders of some kind, their raids woven into the fabric of ancient lore. While this idea veers into the realm of fantasy, it speaks to the deep and enduring mysteries surrounding the Sea Peoples. Perhaps their true identity was lost to time, with the historical records we do have distorted and romanticized over the centuries. What remains clear is that the Sea Peoples' raids had a profound and lasting impact on the ancient Mediterranean world. Entire empires were brought to their knees in a short period of time, and the ancient world was forever changed. Yet the true nature of these invaders, their origins, their motivations, and their ultimate fate continues to elude us. Were they a single unified force or a patchwork of displaced peoples? Were their raids a response to larger global shifts in the region? Or did they represent something more? The Sea Peoples remain one of history's most perplexing and unresolved mysteries. As the ancient records fade and the sands of time cover their tracks, we are left to wonder what secrets are still hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. As we shift our focus from the tumultuous waters of the Mediterranean to the mist-covered landscapes of ancient Ireland, another mystery unfolds, one that has puzzled historians for centuries. The Irish annals chronicling the events of the 6th century make a chilling reference to a period of 3 years of darkness, an event that seems to defy the natural world and challenge the very fabric of historical understanding. Recorded in the year 536 AD, this enigmatic event is described as a time when the sun was blotted out, casting the world into an unnatural gloom. The records from ancient Ireland speak of a time when the sky grew dim and daylight seemed to disappear. A failure of the sun is how it's described in some of the annals. Farmers found their crops unable to grow under the strange and persistent shadows, and people spoke of a pervasive darkness that hung over the land for 3 long years. The sun was said to have been obscured by an unusual fog, and the nights were longer, colder, and darker than anything previously experienced. This period of gloom, as the annals recount, caused widespread famine and social upheaval across the region. Though the annals may seem like the stuff of legend, the phenomenon they describe is very real, and it has left an indelible mark on history. But what could have caused such a dramatic and prolonged event? What was it that darkened the skies and disrupted life across the northern hemisphere? The most widely accepted explanation comes from a natural disaster, a massive volcanic eruption. Many scholars believe that the event described in the Irish annals corresponds with the eruption of a volcano, possibly in Iceland or elsewhere in the far north. The eruption would have sent enormous amounts of ash and debris into the atmosphere, creating a dense veil that blocked sunlight. This phenomenon, known as a volcanic winter, could have caused temperatures to drop significantly, leading to crop failures, famine, and the prolonged darkness described by the Irish records. Indeed, the year 536 AD marks a period of climate disruption across Europe, with records from other parts of the world, including the Byzantine Empire and the Mediterranean, supporting the theory of a global cooling event. In fact, tree ring data and curing the sun for an entire 3-year period.
Could this have been more than just volcanic ash?
Some have speculated that the darkness was the result of a unique atmospheric phenomenon, perhaps a combination of volcanic activity and an unexplained cosmic event. Could something in the heavens have influenced the Earth in ways that we don't yet fully understand? The implications of the 3-year darkness are still felt today as historians and scientists continue to grapple with what caused such an event and why it had such a profound impact on the ancient world. Was it simply a natural disaster, a consequence of volcanic eruption and environmental collapse? Or was there something more mysterious at play? Could the records of 536 AD be telling us more than we realize about the vulnerability of our planet and its inhabitants? As we ponder these questions, one thing remains clear. The mystery of the 3-year darkness recorded in the Irish annals has not been fully solved. We may never know the full story behind this event, but as we continue to explore the ancient records and the clues left behind, we are reminded of the many mysteries that still lie hidden in the past, waiting for us to uncover them. What secrets does the Earth hold in its layers of history? And what other phenomena buried in time are yet to be discovered? As we explore the unsolved mysteries of the past, we find ourselves in the heart of southern Africa, where an ancient civilization once flourished, leaving behind a legacy that still baffles historians. Great Zimbabwe, a powerful and influential city, was a marvel of engineering and culture. Its impressive stone structures, including the iconic Great Enclosure and the hill complex, continue to stand as silent witnesses to a time long gone. Yet, despite its grandeur, the city was mysteriously abandoned at the height of its prosperity, and the reasons for its desertion remain unclear. Believed to have been inhabited from the 11th to the 15th century AD, Great Zimbabwe was the heart of a vast empire. At its peak, it was home to thousands of people and served as a political, economic, and religious center. The people built towering stone walls without mortar, using carefully crafted stones so perfectly fitted that not even a blade of grass could slip between them. these walls, still standing after centuries, demonstrate the engineering prowess of a civilization that extended its influence across much of southern Africa. It was a place of wealth, culture, and spiritual significance. Yet during the 15th century, Great Zimbabwe was abandoned. The exact reasons for this desertion remain shrouded in mystery. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of a flourishing society, trade goods from as far as China and Persia, religious artifacts, and elaborate pottery that reveal a sophisticated and prosperous culture. But the city was left behind and its residents vanished seemingly without a trace. What could have caused such a sudden departure? One widely accepted explanation is environmental change. Some scholars suggest that the region experienced severe droughts or shifts in climate that made agriculture increasingly difficult. Great Zimbabwe's reliance on farming and cattle, herd-rearing, could have been threatened by these changes, leading to famine and resource depletion. Evidence of overgrazing, soil erosion, and deforestation supports this theory. The inhabitants may have been forced to leave in search of more fertile lands, and as resources dwindled, so did the stability of the once thriving city. However, this explanation does not fully account for the suddenness of the desertion. Environmental factors typically lead to a gradual collapse, but the abandonment of Great Zimbabwe appears to have occurred abruptly, without signs of prolonged decline. Could other factors have contributed? Some theories suggest that political instability or internal conflict might have played a role. The kingdom may have faced power struggles between rival factions, weakening its social and political structures. Archaeologists have found broken pottery and signs of violence that could indicate internal conflict. Was the collapse a result of political turmoil, with people fleeing from unrest? Another possibility involves external forces. The decline of Great Zimbabwe coincided with the rise of regional powers such as the Kingdom of Mutapa, which may have diverted trade away from the city. This redirection of trade routes could have weakened the city's economic power, contributing to its decline. There are also theories of invasion, though there is little archaeological evidence to support this claim. Did outside forces play a role in the collapse, or was it simply changing regional dynamics? Some fringe theories speculate further. One suggests that the desertion of Great Zimbabwe might be linked to the arrival of European explorers or colonizers. However, this is widely disputed, as Great Zimbabwe was abandoned long before Europeans arrived in the region. Others propose that the city's inhabitants may have had spiritual or religious reasons for leaving, possibly linked to a shift in religious practices or a search for spiritual fulfillment. While intriguing, this idea lacks concrete evidence. Then there's the question of the stone structures themselves. Some believe that the massive walls of Great Zimbabwe may have been part of a spiritual or ritualistic site, and that their abandonment was tied to a change in religious beliefs or leadership. The great enclosure with its towering walls and mysterious purpose remains a symbol of the civilization's power. But could it also represent something more? Profound spiritual or cultural shift? Could the abandonment of the city have been a symbolic act? The mystery of Great Zimbabwe's abandonment continues to captivate those seeking to understand the rise and fall of civilizations. Was it environmental collapse, political instability, or external forces that led to its desertion? Or is there a deeper hidden truth, one that may never be fully uncovered? As we reflect on this ancient enigma, we are reminded that the answers to the mysteries of the past are often elusive. The stories left behind in the ruins of ancient cities may be more complex than we can imagine. What happened to the people of Great Zimbabwe? What secrets lie buried beneath the stones and sands of this once great empire? The answers may be lost to time, but the questions remain, waiting to be explored. As we shift our focus from the great civilizations of Africa to the azure waters of the Iron Sea, we encounter one of the most enigmatic and devastating events in ancient history. The eruption of Thera, believed to have caused the sudden fall of the Minoan civilization. Thera, now known as Santorini, was once a thriving hub of trade and culture. Its people, the Minoans, were renowned for their advanced knowledge in art, architecture, and maritime navigation. Yet, in a single catastrophic event around 1600 BC, everything changed. A massive volcanic eruption wiped out much of the island and had far-reaching effects across the Mediterranean, leaving behind a mystery that has baffled historians for centuries. The island of Thera, with its striking cliffs and volcanic landscape, once stood as a beacon of civilization. The Minoans who inhabited the island were a sophisticated people rich in fresco palaces and a complex writing system. Their trade network spanned the Mediterranean, reaching as far as Egypt and the Near East. The island's main city, Akrotiri, was an urban marvel with multi-story buildings, advanced plumbing systems, and artwork that told the stories of daily life. Then, sometime in the 17th century BC, Thera erupted with a force so immense it would leave its mark on history for millennia. The eruption sent a cloud of ash high into the sky, blocking out the sun and plunging the region into darkness. Massive tsunamis likely followed, devastating coastal settlements across the eastern Mediterranean. The city of Akrotiri was buried under layers of ash, preserving it in an eerie moment in time. Similar to Pompeii, the immediate destruction on Thera was overwhelming. But the effects of the eruption stretched far beyond the island. The ash cloud likely covered vast areas of the Mediterranean, causing a volcanic winter that lowered temperatures. Crops failed across the region and the Minoans' trade networks were disrupted. In Egypt, records mention strange phenomena:
famine, poor harvests, and a decline in the quality of the Nile floods,
which some scholars believe could have been related to the eruption. The ripple effect from this one event may have contributed to economic and social upheavals across the ancient world. Yet, despite the far-reaching consequences, the true extent of its impact on the Minoans remains debated. Some believe the eruption marked the beginning of the end for the Minoan civilization, weakening their society and leaving them vulnerable to external forces. The destruction of Thera would have crippled their economy and military. The Mycenaeans, a rising power on the Greek mainland, may have taken advantage of this vulnerability, leading to the Minoans' decline. However, others suggest the Minoans may have recovered and adapted. The eruption could have been one of many factors, such as internal political instability or changing trade routes that contributed to their eventual collapse. Evidence suggests that Minoan culture continued to thrive for some time after the eruption. The palaces on Crete, such as Nos, show signs of rebuilding. Could the eruption have merely hastened a decline that was already in motion? Some fringe theories speculate that the eruption was linked to other ancient catastrophes, such as the biblical plagues of Egypt. Though highly speculative, this raises intriguing questions about the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations and the potential for natural disasters to shape history in ways we don't fully
understand.
The eruption's wider effects also invite reflection on the limits of our knowledge. While we can analyze geological evidence such as ash layers and volcanic glass in ancient soil, many questions remain. Was the eruption the primary cause of the Minoans' downfall? Or was it just one part of a larger story? What did the people of Thera experience as their world was torn apart by such a cataclysm? Despite centuries of archaeological research, we still struggle to fully understand the scope and consequences of this eruption. The mystery of the eruption and its devastating impact on the Minoan civilization continues to puzzle modern scholars. As we sift through the ashes of history, we are reminded of how little we know about the forces that shaped the ancient world. Though the eruption occurred thousands of years ago, its effects continue to raise questions about the fragility of civilizations, the unpredictable power of nature, and how disaster can alter history in ways we may never fully comprehend. The answers may be buried beneath ash and time waiting to be uncovered. Or perhaps they are lost forever in the swirling mists of the past. As we journey through the mists of time, we arrive at the rolling hills and fertile plains of central Italy, once the heart of a powerful civilization one whose legacy has been obscured by the sands of time. The Etruscans, a people whose influence shaped the early Roman Republic,
are now but a whisper in the history books.
Their cities, such as Tarquinia and Veii, once rivaled Rome in power and sophistication. Yet, despite their prominence, the Etruscan language and much of their identity vanished almost completely, leaving behind tantalizing clues and unanswered questions. The Etruscan civilization flourished from the 8th to the 3rd century BC, leaving behind grand tombs, intricate artwork, and an extensive network of trade that spanned the Mediterranean. Their cities were vibrant centers of culture, politics, and religion, boasting impressive architecture and sophisticated systems of governance. The Etruscans were known for their advanced knowledge of metallurgy, their distinctive art, and their deeply spiritual practices. Yet, despite their achievements, the Etruscan language, once spoken by millions,
has largely disappeared from history.
Only fragments of their written language remain, and scholars have yet to fully decode the intricacies of their script. The Etruscan language itself is one of the great mysteries of ancient history. Unlike Latin, Greek, or other Indo-European languages, Etruscan is an isolated language unrelated to any known language family. Inscriptions on tombs, pottery, and other artifacts offer some insight into their writing system, but the language remains largely unreadable. Despite decades of research, linguists have struggled to make significant progress in translating the Etruscan script. The lack of bilingual texts, such as the Rosetta Stone for the Etruscans, has made this task all the more difficult. What were the Etruscans trying to tell us in their writings? And why is it so challenging to unlock their language? The mystery deepens when we consider the rapid disappearance of the Etruscan civilization itself. By the 4th century BC, the Etruscans were gradually absorbed into the growing Roman Republic through a combination of warfare, political assimilation, and cultural integration. The Etruscan identity began to dissolve. But why did the Etruscans, with their rich cultural heritage and powerful cities, fade so quickly into obscurity? Was it simply the rise of Rome that overshadowed them, or was there something more at play? Some historians argue that the Etruscans' downfall was inevitable due to their political fragmentation. Unlike the unified and militarily powerful Roman state, the Etruscan cities were often divided and prone to infighting. This disunity may have made them vulnerable to external threats, including the growing power of Rome. As the Romans expanded, they absorbed Etruscan cities, gradually incorporating their culture and language into their own. Over time, the Etruscan identity was diluted and their language was replaced by Latin. Yet the complete disappearance of such a distinct culture and language remains a mystery. Others suggest that the Etruscans' decline may have been accelerated by environmental factors. Evidence from archaeological sites indicates that the region suffered from deforestation, soil erosion, and changes in climate that could have undermined their agricultural base. As their cities struggled to sustain themselves, their power waned, and the Etruscans may have been forced to abandon their traditional way of life. This environmental degradation, coupled with Roman expansion, could have led to the gradual dissolution of the Etruscan identity, but perhaps the disappearance of the Etruscan
language and identity is not so easily explained.
Some fringe theories suggest that the Etruscans may have deliberately abandoned their language and culture as a form of cultural reinvention. Did the Etruscans choose to integrate with the Romans willingly, forsaking their own identity for the promise of a new future? If so, why did they choose such a drastic path, one that left so little trace of their once great civilization? There are also theories that suggest the Etruscans did not disappear entirely, but instead went underground, preserving their traditions and language in secret. Some believe that the Etruscans may have merged with other cultures, hiding their true identity in the shadows as the Roman Empire grew. Could the Etruscans have blended with other peoples, their language and culture absorbed into new civilizations, only to leave behind a few cryptic inscriptions and artifacts? Is it possible that the Etruscans are not truly gone, but rather hidden in plain sight? Their legacy buried in the folds of history. Despite the many theories, one thing remains clear. The true story of the Etruscan disappearance is still shrouded in mystery. The fragments of their language, the remnants of their cities, and the echoes of their culture offer tantalizing clues, but the full picture remains elusive. What happened to the Etruscans? Was their disappearance a result of cultural assimilation, environmental factors, or something more mysterious? As we delve into the enigma of the Etruscan civilization, we are reminded of the fragility of history. Entire cultures can rise and fall, leaving only traces behind for future generations to uncover. The mystery of the Etruscans' disappearance invites us to wonder how many other civilizations, languages and identities have vanished from history, their stories lost to time. What secrets remain hidden in the ruins of ancient cities, waiting for us to uncover them? And will we ever fully understand the true fate of the Etruscans? As we shift our gaze from the Mediterranean to ancient Mesopotamia, we encounter one of history's greatest enigmas, the sudden fall of the Acadian Empire, founded by Sargon of Akkad around 2134 BC. It was the first expansive empire in human history, uniting the Sumerians, Ardeans, and other peoples under one rule. For centuries, it thrived in the fertile land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. But then, almost as suddenly as it rose, the Acadian Empire collapsed. What makes this downfall particularly haunting is the legend of the Curse of Sargon, a mysterious force some believe played a key role in the empire's demise. The Acadian Empire, known for its military prowess, architectural innovations, and advancements in writing, was once the epitome of power. Sargon, its founder, ruled a vast territory stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, unifying diverse cultures. Under his leadership, Akkad became a symbol of strength, a shining example of early empire building. Yet just a few decades after Sargon's reign, the empire's once thriving cities began to falter. What caused this rapid and unexplained decline? The most widely accepted explanation is a catastrophic environmental shift, specifically a prolonged drought around 2200 BC. Studies of ancient climate patterns and archaeological evidence suggest that the river systems of Mesopotamia began to dry up, crippling the empire's agricultural base. As crops failed and water supplies dwindled, the Acadian Empire's economy collapsed. This environmental stress led to famine, discontent, and ultimately the breakdown of social and political structures. Yet, the environmental theory only scratches the surface. The downfall of the Acadian Empire is intertwined with an ancient curse, a supernatural element that has captivated scholars for centuries. Ancient texts, particularly inscriptions from later Mesopotamian rulers, refer to a curse placed on Sargon's descendants, suggesting that the gods turned against them, possibly in response to their overreach or arrogance. The curse of Sargon is mentioned in records describing the Akkadian ruler's eventual downfall, a supernatural force that some believe played a role in the empire's collapse. Could this curse have been more than myth? Could it have played a role alongside environmental and political factors? Divine retribution was a recurring theme in ancient civilizations where disasters were often seen as signs of the gods' displeasure. The Acadians, deeply devoted to their deities, may have viewed the drought not only as a natural catastrophe, but as divine punishment. But how much weight should we give these supernatural explanations? Could the Acadians have resorted to curses to explain their misfortune? The environmental theory also faces complexities. Some scholars argue that the empire's downfall resulted from a combination of factors: internal political strife, external invasions, and changing trade routes. Evidence suggests that the rulers may have been unable to adapt to these conditions, contributing to their erosion of power. The Acadians may have failed to manage their growing empire, leading to collapse. Was their downfall the result of a natural disaster, compounded by political mismanagement rather than divine wrath? Interestingly, ancient texts mentioning the curse of Sargon suggest that the end of the Acadian Empire was both inevitable and divine. These texts describe the curse as being written into the fabric of the empire's fate. The Acadians may have viewed their collapse not merely as the result of misfortune, but as the fulfillment of a predestined prophecy. The curse of Sargon may have been a tool of social and political control, framing the empire's decline as a cosmic event beyond human understanding or intervention. As we reflect on the fall of the Acadian Empire, we are left with more questions than answers. Did the drought alone bring about its collapse? Or was something deeper at play, something more mysterious? Could the curse of Sargon have been more than myth, a way for the Acadians to explain the unexplainable? Or was it an actual event, divine retribution for their arrogance? The Acadian Empire, the first great empire of ancient Mesopotamia, rose and fell in a flash. Its legacy remains, but the true cause of its sudden demise is still shrouded in mystery. As we search for answers in the ruins and ancient texts, one thing remains clear. The forces that brought down this mighty civilization may be more complex and more mysterious than we can ever fully comprehend. What hidden truths lie buried beneath the sands of time, and what other civilizations have fallen victim to forces beyond their control?
Only time will tell.
As we continue our exploration of the ancient world, we find ourselves in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, where the Hittite Empire once stood as a powerful force. At its zenith, the Hittites controlled vast territories from the highlands of Anatolia to the fertile plains of Mesopotamia. Their influence shaped the political and military landscapes of the time. Yet, as swiftly as they rose, the Hittites disappeared from history, leaving behind the silence of their once mighty civilization. What happened to the Hittites? And why does their sudden disappearance remain one of the great mysteries? The ruins of Hattusa, the Hittite capital, stand as a silent testament to their once great civilization. The city, with its massive stone walls, carved reliefs, and imposing gates, reveals the sophistication and power of the Hittite people. Known for their military strategies, legal codes, and skilled metalwork, the Hittites were also master diplomats. One of their most famous achievements was the Treaty of Kadesh, signed with Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II, one of the oldest peace agreements in history. Yet around the 12th century BC, the Hittite Empire seemed to fall into silence. The great city of Hattusa was abandoned, and records of the Hittites began to fade. What caused this sudden disappearance? The most widely accepted explanation is the collapse of the Hittite Empire during the Late Bronze Age collapse. This period saw widespread societal collapse across the eastern Mediterranean, with many civilizations crumbling due to invasions, internal strife, and environmental factors. The Sea Peoples, a mysterious group of raiders, are often cited as a major factor in the downfall of the Hittites. Some scholars argue that the Hittite Empire, weakened by internal conflict and external threats, could not withstand these invasions. The fall of Hattusa and the Hittites' silence may have been a direct result of these attacks. However, this explanation does not fully account for the suddenness of their disappearance. The Hittite Empire didn't simply crumble gradually, it vanished almost overnight. Archaeological evidence suggests Hattusa was violently abandoned, with its walls and gates left in disrepair and its buildings looted. The city, once a vibrant political and cultural center, was left to decay, its silence broken only by occasional excavations. What caused this sudden, almost ghostly departure? Some theories suggest that internal instability may have played a role in the Hittites' fall. Like many ancient empires, the Hittite Empire was complex and diverse, composed of various ethnic groups and languages. The central authority in Hattusa may have struggled to maintain control over its vast territories,
leading to political fragmentation. This
internal disintegration could have left the Hittites vulnerable to external Threats such as invasions from the Sea Peoples or the rising Assyrian power to the east. Could internal conflicts have weakened the Hittites from within, making them an easy target? Another possibility is that the fall of the Hittites was linked to environmental factors. The Late Bronze Age collapse coincides with evidence of severe droughts and climatic shifts in the region. Researchers speculate that these stresses may have undermined the Hittites' agricultural base, leading to famine, resource depletion, and social unrest. Hattusa, located on the Anatolian plateau, relied heavily on surrounding fertile lands to sustain its population. Could a prolonged drought or shifting weather patterns have pushed the Hittites to abandon their capital in search of more hospitable lands? While these theories offer plausible explanations, they still leave many questions unanswered. The silence of the Hittites is unsettling, and the abruptness of their disappearance is unlike other historical collapses. Unlike the fall of the Roman Empire, which left behind extensive records of its decline, the Hittites left few traces of their fall. Their written records, once abundant in Hattusa, vanish after the collapse, leaving only fragments behind. Some fringe theories offer more speculative explanations. Could a religious or supernatural element have been involved? The Hittites were deeply religious, and their pantheon of gods was central to their identity. Could the sudden silence of the Hittites have been linked to a spiritual transformation, leading them to abandon their cities and retreat from the world? Was their disappearance part of a larger mysterious shift in the ancient world, something we are only beginning to understand? The mystery of the Hittites' fall continues to captivate historians and archaeologists. Despite the wealth of evidence about their rise, their sudden disappearance remains one of history's most haunting puzzles. The city of Hattusa, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, stands as a monument to a people who once ruled a vast empire, but whose fate remains clouded in mystery. Was it invasion, internal collapse, or environmental disaster? Or is there something more hidden in the silence waiting to be uncovered? The Hittites may have vanished from history, but their story, like many others, remains incomplete, waiting for the next discovery to shed light on the forces that shaped their rise and fall. High in the Andes, at the edge of Lake Titicaca, lies the ancient city of Tiwanaku, once a thriving metropolis that flourished for over 1,000 years. The city's remnants, with their massive stone structures and mysterious carved faces, speak of a civilization that achieved remarkable heights of engineering and culture. Yet, despite its grandeur, Tiwanaku's sudden desertion remains one of the great unsolved mysteries. Unlike many ancient civilizations that collapsed due to war, invasion, or internal conflict, there is little evidence of violent conflict at Tiwanaku. Instead, the city was abandoned during its peak, with no signs of military destruction and no clear explanation for why a thriving society simply disappeared. Founded around 1500 BC, Tiwanaku was a key center of the Andean world, serving as a religious and political hub. The city was surrounded by intricate agricultural terraces sustaining a large population. Its architectural marvels, like the Gateway of the Sun with its massive stone arch and detailed carvings, remain iconic symbols of the city. The walls and roads were made of precisely cut stones, and the layout suggests a highly organized society skilled in urban planning and craftsmanship. The people of Tiwanaku were pioneers in agriculture, metallurgy, and pottery, creating a culture that influenced surrounding regions for centuries. Despite this thriving civilization, Tiwanaku was mysteriously abandoned around 1000 AD at the height of its power. Unlike other civilizations that crumbled under invasions or natural disasters, Tiwanaku shows no signs of warfare or external conquest. The city's walls, structures, and religious sites were left largely intact. What could have caused the inhabitants of such a well-developed society to leave their city behind so suddenly? The most widely accepted explanation for Tiwanaku's desertion is environmental change. Evidence suggests that around the time of Tiwanaku's abandonment, the region experienced significant climatic shifts. including prolonged droughts and fluctuations in rainfall. This would have severely impacted agriculture, the backbone of Tiwanaku's economy, leading to food shortages. Without fertile lands to sustain its population, the people of Tiwanaku may have been forced to leave in search of more reliable resources. While this environmental theory offers a plausible explanation, it doesn't fully account for the suddenness of the desertion. If the city had faced gradual environmental degradation, why did the population abandon the city so quickly? Archaeological evidence shows no signs of a slow decline. There are no indicators of gradual abandonment. Instead, the city was left almost overnight, as though the inhabitants had been forced to leave in a hurry, leaving much behind. Could there have been another, more mysterious force at play? Some scholars suggest that Tiwanaku's desertion might have been due to social upheaval, although there is no direct evidence of internal conflict or violence. Could the society have collapsed from within due to internal strife or political instability? The city was a religious and political center, and shifts in leadership or religious beliefs might have caused fractures leading to mass migration or abandonment. However, no definitive signs of such turmoil have been found. Another theory proposes that the desertion was linked to an external factor, perhaps a mass migration due to pressure from neighboring civilizations or groups seeking to settle in the region. The surrounding highlands were home to powerful Andean societies such as the Incas, who might have been drawn to the region's resources. Could Tiwanaku's residents have been displaced by external forces? Even if those forces left no typical signs of war, this remains a possibility, though unproven. A more speculative theory connects Tiwanaku's abandonment to a religious or spiritual event. Some have suggested that a shift in belief systems prompted the inhabitants to leave as part of a larger spiritual journey. The gateway of the sun with its celestial alignments suggests the people of Tiwanaku had a sophisticated understanding of the stars. Could their departure have been related to a significant celestial event, such as a solar alignment that prompted the city's abandonment? Was there a deeper spiritual reason for their migration beyond survival? In the end, the mystery of Tiwanaku's desertion remains one of the great unanswered questions of the ancient world. Despite extensive archaeological research, no clear evidence has emerged to explain why the inhabitants left so suddenly and without violence. Was it the result of environmental disaster, social upheaval, or something more mysterious, hidden beneath layers of time? The stones of Tiwanaku still stand in solemn silence, offering only fragments of clues to the civilization that once flourished there. The mystery of why it was abandoned in its prime continues to captivate researchers, historians, and explorers alike. What secrets still lie buried beneath the soil of this ancient city? The answers may never fully be revealed, but the questions will continue to echo across the Andean mountains, waiting to be explored. As we turn our gaze to the classical world, we find ourselves in ancient Greece, a civilization renowned for its culture, philosophy, and political innovation. Athens, a beacon of democracy and intellectual achievement, was at its peak during the Peloponnesian War, a conflict that shaped history. Yet during this pivotal time, an extraordinary and inexplicable event occurred. An unknown plague ravaged Athens, leaving a lasting impact on the city's fate. What was this plague, and why did it strike with such brutal force, leaving Athens in despair? In 430 BC, Athens was engaged in its long struggle against Sparta and its allies. The war, marked by complex military maneuvers, had already placed immense strain on the city. But it was during this precarious time that an even greater calamity struck, a mysterious illness. The plague began in the overcrowded city, where inhabitants had been confined within the walls to protect themselves from the advancing Spartan forces. What started as a few isolated cases quickly escalated into a full-scale epidemic, spreading with terrifying speed. The symptoms were gruesome. Victims suffered from high fever, painful boils, and burning sensations in their throats. They were consumed by madness, some throwing themselves into the sea, others rampaging through the streets. The plague killed many, including the famous General Pericles. Athens, once vibrant with intellectual and artistic pursuits, was paralyzed by fear and chaos. The population was decimated, and its military might severely weakened. Despite detailed records, the exact cause of the plague remains one of history's greatest mysteries. The most comprehensive account comes from the historian Thucydides, who, as a survivor, documented the events with chilling precision. He described the physical symptoms, the psychological toll, and the overwhelming despair that gripped the city. But Thucydides, despite his extensive observations, could not pinpoint the source of the plague. His account describes a devastating force that defied the medical knowledge of the time. Theories about the plague's origin have ranged from the plausible to the speculative. The most commonly accepted explanation is that the disease was caused by a bacterial infection, possibly typhus or a form of salmonella. Typhoid fever caused by Salmonella typhi is often cited due to its match with the symptoms described by Thucydides. Typhus, another bacterial infection carried by lice, has also been suggested, especially given the overcrowded conditions during the siege. Both diseases would have spread rapidly in the confined quarters of Athens. However, these explanations leave many questions unanswered. The rapid spread of the disease seems too extreme for these bacterial infections. Typhoid fever and typhus, while deadly, do not typically cause the sudden mass death described by Thucydides. Furthermore, the psychological symptoms, madness, and frantic actions are not easily explained by these diseases. Could something else have been at play, something more enigmatic that ancient doctors could not understand? Some fringe theories suggest the plague was caused by a viral infection such as the Ebola virus or even smallpox. These viruses could have spread rapidly and caused the extreme symptoms described. Smallpox, known for its high mortality rate and disfiguring pustules, might explain the boils seen by ancient witnesses. However, there is no conclusive evidence to support the idea that smallpox existed in ancient Athens. Other more speculative theories propose that the plague resulted from something outside biology, perhaps a cosmic event. Some suggest that a comet or meteorite might have released harmful gases or pathogens into the atmosphere, triggering the disease. This theory, while intriguing, remains speculative, and there is no substantial evidence to support it. Still, the ancient worldview often linked disease to divine or supernatural punishment, making the idea of a celestial cause compelling. The mystery of the plague deepens when we consider its timing. The outbreak occurred at a critical point in the Peloponnesian War when Athens was already weakened. Could the plague have been a turning point shifting the balance of power between Athens and Sparta? The disease certainly contributed to Athens' eventual decline. The unanswered questions surrounding the plague remind us of the limits of our knowledge and leading to diminished morale and military strength. But did it also have a psychological impact, sowing fear and chaos that undermined the city's ability to resist external threats? What is most unsettling about the Athenian plague is how little we know about it. Despite centuries of historical and medical analysis, the true nature of the disease remains elusive. Was it bacterial, viral, or something else entirely? And why did it strike at such a critical moment, altering the course of the Peloponnesian War and the future of ancient Greece? The unanswered questions surrounding the plague remind us of the limits of our knowledge and the mysteries still present in the ancient world. The disease that decimated Athens may have faded from living memory, but the questions it raises persist, waiting for us to uncover the truths buried beneath the layers of time. Nestled between the great rivers of Central Asia and the Iranian plateau, the Sogdian cities once stood as thriving trade hubs along the ancient Silk Road. The Sogdians, known for their ability to bridge cultures and languages, played a pivotal role in connecting the East and West, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and culture. The bustling markets of Samarkand, Bukhara, and other Sogdian cities were filled with merchants from China, India, Persia, and even the Roman Empire. Yet despite their critical role in global trade, the Sogdian network vanished almost overnight. What caused this sudden collapse? By the 5th century AD, the Sogdian cities were among the most prosperous in the world. Their people were skilled traders known for weaving, metalwork, and diplomacy. The Sogdians built strong relationships with the Persians, Turks, and Chinese, and their language became the lingua franca of the Silk Road. Sogdian merchants facilitated the exchange of silk, spices, metals, and artistic ideas. Cities like Samarkand boasted grand architecture, bustling markets, and vibrant cultures. Yet by the end of the 8th century AD, the once thriving Sogdian network had collapsed, and its cities were abandoned. What happened to the Stians? And why did their vital role in Silk Road trade end so abruptly? The most widely accepted explanation is the arrival of the Arab Caliphate. In the mid-8th century, the Islamic Empire expanded into Central Asia, and its military conquests swept through the region, bringing the Sogdian cities under Arab control. The Arab conquest disrupted Sogdian trade routes as the new political and economic systems were introduced. The powerful centralized Arab Caliphate imposed its own trade priorities, leaving little room for the once vibrant Sogdian merchants. However, this theory does not fully explain the speed and scale of the collapse. The Sogdian network didn't just shrink, it disappeared almost entirely, as if the cities had been drained of life in a matter of years. The markets and trade routes linking China to the Mediterranean vanished, and the Sogdian cities were left in ruins. It wasn't just the physical destruction of cities. The cultural and economic infrastructure that supported the trade system seemed to dissolve almost overnight. Could the Sogdians, known for their adaptability, have been overwhelmed by a new political order? Or was there something more at play? Some scholars suggest that internal factors such as shifting political landscapes, internal strife, and economic instability may have weakened the Sogdian cities before the Arabs arrived. There is evidence of growing fragmentation within the Sogdian states, making them vulnerable to external pressures. Another possible factor was environmental change. Central Asia, with its desert landscapes and fragile ecosystems, often faced fluctuating climate conditions. A prolonged drought, changes in river systems, or soil degradation could have undermined the agricultural base that supported the Sogdian economy. Some historians believe the collapse may have been compounded by these environmental challenges, making it harder for the region to sustain its wealth. Without a strong agricultural foundation, the city's roles as trade hubs could have crumbled long before the Arab conquests. Still, the speed of the collapse remains unsettling. The Sogdians had long been masters of survival, adapting to the changing tides of history. Was there something more behind their sudden decline? Some fringe theories propose that an external force, perhaps a natural disaster, plague, or even a cosmic event, could have triggered the collapse. Could a comet or meteorite strike have disrupted the delicate system sustaining these ancient cities? While intriguing, these theories remain speculative and lack substantial evidence. While the theory of Arab conquest is the most widely accepted, it does not fully explain the extraordinary nature of the Sogdian fall. The cities of Samarkand and Bukhara were at the heart of the Silk Road. How could such a crucial network vanish without a trace? The mystery of the Sogdian collapse is a haunting reminder of how rapidly history can change. A civilization that once thrived at the crossroads of the ancient world, connecting distant lands and cultures, suddenly faded from the historical record. Was it the result of military conquest, internal decay, or a combination of unforeseen factors? Or was there something more hidden beneath the surface that caused the Sogdian network to disappear without a trace? The ruins of Samarkand and Bukhara still stand as silent witnesses to the rise and fall of the Sogdian civilization. As we look back on their history, we are left with more questions than answers. What truly caused the collapse of the Sogdian trading network? And what other secrets of the Silk Road might still be waiting to be uncovered? The answers may remain lost to time, but the enigma of the Sogdians continues to stir curiosity and wonder. Along the southern coast of the Iberian Peninsula, the ancient civilization of Tartessos once thrived. Nestled between the Guadalquivir River and the Mediterranean Sea, Tartessos was a rich and vibrant culture, known for its advanced metallurgy, trade networks, and mysterious connections with distant civilizations. The people of Tartessos were famed for their wealth, particularly in gold and silver, which flowed into their cities through trade routes across the Mediterranean. Yet after centuries of prosperity, Tartessos disappeared almost overnight. What caused the collapse of this once flourishing society? The remains of Tartessos are still an enigma buried beneath the sands and waters of southern Iberia. Archaeological evidence of their advanced culture is found in intricate metal work, pottery, and remnants of fortified cities. Tartessos was a center of commerce known for its trade in precious metals, tin and amber. Its people were skilled in metalwork, producing exquisite jewelry and weapons. The city, believed to be near the marshes of the Guadalquivir River, was a key hub in the trade routes between Europe and North Africa, likely having contact with the Phoenicians, Carthaginians, and even Egypt. Despite its prosperity, the Tartessian civilization mysteriously collapsed by the end of the 8th century BC. The once thriving trade networks ceased and the cities were abandoned. Why did this happen when the society was at its peak? The most commonly accepted theory for the fall of Tartessos is the arrival of the Phoenicians in the 8th century BC. The Phoenicians, known for their naval prowess, were expanding their influence across the Mediterranean. Some historians suggest that the Phoenicians gradually replaced the Tartessians as the dominant trading power, pushing them out of their traditional trade routes. However, this theory lacks direct evidence, as there are no historical records describing an overt takeover by the Phoenicians. Another theory involves the depletion of local resources, especially the gold and silver that made Tartessos wealthy. Overexploitation of these valuable resources could have led to economic decline. Evidence shows that the region's rivers and landscapes were altered by mining and agriculture, potentially causing environmental degradation. If the wealth that once sustained the Tartessians contributed to the depletion of resources, their economic foundation may have crumbled, weakening the society. But the suddenness of their disappearance raises questions. There are no signs of a slow decline or warfare, which makes the collapse all the more perplexing. The absence of destruction or conflict suggests that Tartessos didn't fall to an invading army. Could it have been internal decay? The society was complex and multi-ethnic, and political fragmentation may have made the cities vulnerable to external pressures. Shifting political dynamics within Tartessos could have weakened their ability to adapt to changing conditions. Environmental factors may have also played a role. Central Asia, with its fragile desert ecosystems, was subject to fluctuating climates. Prolonged droughts, shifts in river systems, or soil degradation could have undermined the agricultural base which supported the Sogdian economy. The collapse of trade networks may have been compounded by these environmental stresses, making it harder for the region to sustain its wealth. The collapse could have started long before the Phoenician expansion, with environmental factors weakening the Sogdian society. Some fringe theories suggest a more dramatic cause, such as a natural disaster. Earthquakes, tsunamis, or flooding may have caused widespread devastation, perhaps even sinking parts of the city or altering the Guadalquivir River. The region experienced seismic activity in ancient times, and such an event could explain the sudden disappearance of the Tartessians. However, there is no direct evidence to support this theory, and it remains speculative. Another speculative theory posits that the Tartessians may have undergone a profound cultural or religious shift. The people of Tartessos were deeply religious, and significant changes in belief systems might have led to the abandonment of their cities. Perhaps a spiritual transformation caused them to migrate, seeking new opportunities or beliefs. While intriguing, there is little archaeological evidence to support such a radical cultural change. The mystery of Tartessos continues to captivate historians and archaeologists. What caused this powerful civilization to vanish so suddenly? Was it the result of environmental exhaustion, political displacement, or a natural disaster? Or is there an even deeper, more elusive explanation that remains hidden beneath the sands? The ruins of Tartessos still stand as silent witnesses to the rise and fall of a civilization that once thrived at the crossroads of trade and culture. As we explore their history, we are left with more questions than answers. What truly caused the collapse of the Sogdian trading network?
And what other hidden stories from the ancient world are waiting to be uncovered?
The answers may remain lost to time, but the enigma of the Tartessians continues to stir curiosity and wonder. Amidst the arid deserts of modern-day Jordan, nestled between rugged mountains and deep canyons, lies the ancient city of Petra. Once the heart of the Nabatean kingdom, known for its stunning rock-cut architecture and advanced water management systems, Petra stands as a testament to the ingenuity and wealth of the Nabateans, who mastered living in an unforgiving environment. Their ability to control water in one of the driest regions on Earth allowed them to thrive, turning their desert kingdom into a prosperous trading hub. Yet, despite their remarkable achievements, the Nabatean kingdom mysteriously declined and eventually disappeared, leaving historians to wonder what caused the fall of such a sophisticated society. The city of Petra, with its grand facades carved into cliffs and its intricate water channels, remains one of the most remarkable archaeological sites in the world. The Nabateans were masters of water conservation, designing advanced aqueducts, cisterns, and channels to collect and store rainwater. This innovation enabled them to sustain cities and trade routes in an otherwise inhospitable environment. Strategically located at the crossroads of ancient trade routes, Petra became a wealthy metropolis, attracting merchants from as far as India, Arabia, and the Mediterranean. The Nabateans traded in spices, incense, and precious metals, amassing great wealth. Their control over the trade routes and desert navigation made them a powerful force. Despite this prosperity, by the 4th century AD, the kingdom began to fade and was absorbed into the growing Roman Empire, seemingly vanishing from history. What caused this sudden decline? The most accepted explanation points to the expansion of the Roman Empire. In 106 AD, the Romans annexed the Nabatean kingdom, incorporating it into the province of Arabia Petraea. The Roman military and administrative structures overshadowed the Nabateans, weakening their influence over regional trade. However, the Romans didn't destroy Petra. Instead, they continued to use it as a trading hub. The city remained intact under Roman rule, and its architectural splendor persisted. Why then did the Nabatean culture disappear? One possibility is that the Nabateans assimilated into the Roman Empire, losing their distinct identity and political power over time. As Roman trade routes expanded, the Nabateans became
less relevant.
While this cultural absorption is common in ancient societies, it doesn't fully explain their rapid disappearance. Their expertise in water management and desert survival should have allowed them to adapt to Roman rule. Yet, they vanished almost entirely. Another theory suggests internal factors contributed to the decline. The Nabateans relied heavily on trade routes and water management, and any disruption in these systems, whether due to environmental change, social upheaval, or shifting political alliances, could have undermined their economy. Evidence suggests that the region experienced changes in climate, such as droughts, which may have disrupted water supplies vital for their survival. Although there is no conclusive evidence linking environmental changes directly to their collapse, such stresses could have weakened their economy long before the Romans arrived. What's striking is the absence of signs of warfare or violent destruction at Petra. Unlike other ancient civilizations, there's no indication that Petra fell to foreign conquest. The city seems to have been gradually abandoned, with the population diminishing over time. This raises the question, was the collapse due to a slow economic decline, environmental pressures, or something else entirely? Some fringe theories suggest a spiritual or cultural shift might have caused the decline. The Nabotans, with their polytheistic beliefs, could have undergone a religious transformation as Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire. Such a shift might have led to the abandonment of their cities, with the people migrating in search of new beliefs or opportunities. While intriguing, this theory lacks archaeological support and remains speculative. Another possibility, though speculative, is that the Nabotans chose to leave rather than face their decline. Could they have consciously migrated, perhaps in search of new opportunities or to escape inevitable collapse? No mass migration has been documented, so this theory remains unsupported by archaeological evidence. The mystery of the Nabotean decline isn't just about the fall of a kingdom. It's about the disappearance of a culture that mastered one of the harshest environments on Earth. The Naboteans, with their remarkable water management systems and ability to thrive in the desert, should have had the means to survive Roman rule. Yet, despite their wealth and strategic importance, they faded away without a clear explanation. As we look upon the ruins of Petra today, the mystery of the Nabatean decline remains unsolved. What caused the sudden fall of a civilization that controlled trade routes, amassed great wealth, and excelled at desert survival? Was it Roman conquest, internal decay, environmental factors, or something more mysterious? The answers may be lost to time, but the questions continue to linger, inviting exploration into the ancient world's hidden secrets. Deep in the Yangtze River Delta, nestled between rugged mountains and deep canyons, lies the ancient city of Liangzhu. Once the heart of the Nabatean kingdom, Liangzhu was a thriving civilization known for its advanced agriculture, exquisite jade craftsmanship, and remarkable architecture. Despite its achievements, the civilization mysteriously collapsed, leaving behind ruins and unanswered questions. What caused the fall of this once prosperous society? Liangzhu, with its neat cities, intricate canals, and abundant rice fields, seemed destined for lasting success. The culture's jade artifacts and advanced irrigation systems reflect a sophisticated society that was deeply connected to its environment. The people of Liangzhu perfected rice cultivation, developed a complex social and political structure, and thrived in the fertile plains. Strategically located along vital trade routes, the city became a hub for merchants from diverse regions. Yet by around 2000 BC, the society began to unravel. Archaeological evidence shows that the decline of Liangzhu was both rapid and sudden. One of the most significant aspects of this collapse is the evidence of a severe famine. This catastrophe is believed to have led to the disintegration of the Liangzhu culture, leaving the cities abandoned and the once prosperous society in ruins. The cause of the famine remains a mystery. Some scholars point to environmental factors. The region is prone to flooding, and it's possible that changes in climate or the course of the Yangtze River disrupted agriculture. Could a shift in climate have caused a prolonged drought, crippling the rice fields that sustain the population? Despite the advanced irrigation systems they developed, could the people of Liangzhu have been unable to cope with changing conditions? However, the evidence for a sudden climate shift is not definitive. While some studies suggest environmental changes may have played a role in the collapse, no clear evidence links drought or flooding to the famine. In fact, the archaeological record shows no mass loss of crops or signs of widespread drought. This leaves open the possibility that the collapse was not purely environmental, or that other, less tangible factors were at play. Another theory suggests that internal political instability may have contributed to the fall. As the society grew more complex with its social hierarchies and extensive trade networks, divisions within the population may have created conflict. The accumulation of wealth, particularly in jade, could have exacerbated social tensions. Were these internal struggles enough to make it impossible for the society to adapt to external challenges? The sudden abandonment of cities and the lack of evidence for warfare suggest the people may have simply dispersed, unable to survive under pressure. Some fringe theories propose that a more mysterious force such as disease or pestilence could have triggered the collapse. While there is no direct evidence of a plague, the idea of an invisible force weakening the population remains compelling. Could a disease have swept through the population, making survival impossible despite the environmental and social challenges? Though speculative, this theory suggests an unseen cause for the abandonment of Liangzhu. Additionally, some theories turn to supernatural explanations. The people of Liangzhu were deeply connected to the natural world, and the famine might have been perceived as a divine punishment. The timing of Liangzhu's decline coincides with societal upheavals as elsewhere, suggesting that larger complex forces might have been at play, forces that remain beyond our understanding. The collapse of Liangzhu is a poignant reminder of the fragility of human society. Despite their mastery of the environment, the Liangzhu people were brought to their knees by an unknown famine. Their sophisticated irrigation systems, governance, and cultural achievements reflect a civilization at its peak. Yet the suddenness of their disappearance with no clear cause or external threat highlights how quickly prosperity can vanish. What caused the famine that led to the fall of the Liangzhu culture? Was it environmental disaster, political instability, or something more mysterious? The evidence is tantalizing but incomplete, leaving us to wonder what remains hidden beneath the earth and waters. The ruins of Liangzhu are silent witnesses to a lost culture, their secrets still waiting to be uncovered. The story of Liangzhu teaches us about the vulnerability of even the most advanced civilizations. The answers may never fully be known, but the mystery of their disappearance continues to captivate and intrigue. In the heart of Southeast Asia, amidst the dense jungles of modern-day Cambodia, lies the ancient city of Angkor. Once the capital of the Khmer Empire, known for its stunning rock-cut architecture and advanced water management systems, Angkor stands as a testament to the ingenuity and wealth of the Khmer rulers. Their ability to thrive in one of the harshest environments in the world allowed the city to flourish. Yet despite these achievements, Angkor's decline remains a mystery. What caused the fall of this great civilization, especially one with such remarkable advancements? Angkor's most iconic structure, the temple complex of Angkor Wat, symbolizes the grandeur of the Khmer Empire. Built in the early 12th century, it is the largest religious monument in the world dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu. Surrounding it were vast reservoirs known as bare essential for irrigation and the city's water supply. Angkor's intricate canals, roads and water systems reflect a society skilled in urban planning and environmental management. By the 15th century, however, Angkor was abandoned. The reasons behind its decline are still debated. What caused such a powerful and sophisticated empire to fall? The most commonly accepted explanation points to environmental factors. Angkor's prosperity relied heavily on its water management systems. The barrages and canals controlled water for irrigation and the city's water supply. However, it is believed that a period of prolonged drought in the 14th and 15th centuries disrupted this balance. The failure of the water systems likely led to crop failures, famine, and economic collapse. Studies of tree rings and sediment cores suggest significant climatic shifts, which would have put immense pressure on Angkor's agrarian economy. Yet, the environmental explanation alone doesn't fully explain the speed of the collapse. The city was designed to manage such challenges. Could other factors have contributed to its sudden fall? Some scholars suggest political instability played a role. By the 14th and 15th centuries, the Khmer Empire had experienced a series of weak rulers. Internal divisions and succession struggles may have weakened the centralized power, leaving the empire vulnerable to external pressures. Another theory points to external threats. The Thai kingdom of Ayutthaya, growing in power, launched several invasions of Angkor in the 14th and 15th centuries, In 1431, the Thai army sacked the city, and many historians believe this marked the beginning of its decline. Though Angkor was not completely destroyed, the repeated invasions may have weakened the empire's political and military structures, contributing to its eventual abandonment. The idea of military conquest contributing to the fall raises another question. Why didn't the Khmer rulers defend the city more vigorously? Angkor was a fortified city with extensive defenses. The lack of a prolonged military response suggests that something deeper was at play. Perhaps the Khmer rulers, burdened by famine, drought, and internal instability, lost the will to defend their city. Some fringe theories venture into more speculative territory. One theory suggests that a spiritual or religious shift influenced the decline. The Khmer rulers were deeply connected to Hinduism and later Buddhism, and some argue that a major religious transformation or a shift in belief systems could have contributed to the abandonment of the city. Could the rulers of Angkor have turned their focus inward, abandoning their empire in search of spiritual renewal or as a result of perceived divine disfavor? Others propose that Angkor's collapse may have been tied to changes in global trade networks. The rise of maritime trade and the decline of overland trade routes may have made Angkor economically less viable. With the shift in global commerce, the once thriving land-based trade routes became irrelevant, depriving Angkor of its economic lifeblood. As we reflect on the fall of Angkor, we are reminded that its true cause may never be fully understood. The city, once a symbol of wealth, power, and architectural mastery, now lies in ruins, with its grand temples and water systems overgrown by jungle. While climate change, political instability, military invasion, and trade shifts may have played roles in its decline, the precise reasons for Angkor's sudden collapse remain elusive. What caused a civilization with such advanced infrastructure and culture to vanish so quickly? Was it a combination of factors or an unknown force that we have yet to uncover? The answers may be buried in history, waiting to be discovered. In the vast plains of modern-day Pakistan and northwest India, the remains of the ancient Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization lie scattered across the landscape. Known for its advanced urban planning, the cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were marvels of engineering. The meticulous grid layout, advanced drainage systems, and sophisticated water management speak to a society that thrived in one of the world's harshest environments. Yet despite their remarkable achievements, the civilization suddenly collapsed around 1900 BC. What caused the downfall of this once prosperous society? Harappan cities were designed with precision. Streets followed a grid pattern with standardized brick houses and a complex drainage system that was ahead of its time. The cities also featured large reservoirs and wells, ensuring a consistent water supply. The Indus Valley people mastered water conservation, which allowed them to sustain large populations and trade networks. Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were thriving trade hubs, and their location facilitated commerce with Mesopotamia, Persia, and other neighboring civilizations. However, by around 1900 BC, this thriving civilization began to unravel. Archaeological evidence shows that the cities were abandoned, their once advanced infrastructure falling into disrepair. What led to the sudden collapse? The most widely accepted explanation is environmental change. The Harappans depended on monsoon rains to irrigate their crops, and a prolonged drought during the 14th and 15th centuries is thought to have disrupted agriculture. Evidence from tree rings and sediment cores suggests significant climatic shifts, such as a decrease in rainfall that would have devastated the agrarian-based society. As crop failures led to famine, the economy would have been severely weakened, prompting people to abandon the cities in search of better resources. While this climate theory is compelling, it doesn't fully explain the rapid and widespread abandonment of the cities. The Harappan cities were designed to withstand fluctuations in climate. Their water management system should have been able to handle minor changes. Why then did these well-planned cities collapse so quickly and completely? There's no evidence of warfare, invasion, or mass destruction, which raises further questions. Some scholars suggest internal political instability contributed to the fall. As the society grew more complex, divisions between elites and commoners may have created social tensions. The accumulation of wealth, particularly in valuable commodities like jade, may have exacerbated these divisions. However, the lack of evidence for internal conflict makes this theory speculative. The sheer scale of Harappan urban planning implies a high level of social cohesion, making it unlikely that internal issues alone could have caused such a collapse. Another theory points to disruptions in trade. The Harappans were part of an extensive trade network exchanging goods with civilizations like Mesopotamia. Some researchers believe that changes in trade routes due to shifts in political dynamics or the rise of new powers may have disrupted the Harappans' economy. Without vital trade goods such as timber, copper, and precious stones, their cities may have faced economic collapse. While trade was important, the Harappans' advanced agricultural system should have sustained them. So, the theory of trade disruptions alone seems insufficient to explain the sudden decline. Some fringe theories propose more dramatic causes such as natural disasters, earthquakes, or river diversions caused by tectonic activity could have damaged the cities and forced people to abandon them. There is evidence of seismic activity in the region, and ancient riverbeds suggest the possibility of altered watercourses. However, no direct evidence supports this theory on a scale large enough to account for the fall of the civilization. A more speculative theory suggests that a religious or spiritual shift could have played a role in the collapse. The Harappans were deeply connected to nature and their polytheistic beliefs. Some argue that a major religious upheaval, possibly related to changing cultural or spiritual beliefs, led to the abandonment of the cities. However, there is little archaeological evidence to support such a radical cultural transformation, and this remains a less likely explanation. The mystery of the Harappan collapse continues to captivate historians and archaeologists. What caused the downfall of one of the most advanced ancient civilizations? Was it a result of environmental disaster, political collapse, or a natural catastrophe? The answers remain elusive, leaving us to wonder what truly happened to the people of the Indus Valley. The ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro stand as silent witnesses to a once thriving civilization, their secrets still hidden beneath the sands of time. Despite numerous theories, the exact cause of their collapse remains one of the most compelling mysteries in history. What untold stories are buried in the ancient world, waiting to be uncovered? Deep in the heart of Mesoamerica, nestled between the lush jungles and rivers of modern-day Mexico, lies the ancient site of San Lorenzo. Once the heart of the Memic civilization, flourishing from around 1200 BC to 400 BC, the Memic are often considered the mother culture of Mesoamerica, leaving behind monumental stone heads, intricate artwork, and the foundations of the region's cultural and religious practices. Their influence on later civilizations like the Maya and Aztecs is undeniable. Yet despite their power, artistry, and extensive trade networks, the Memic civilization mysteriously declined. What caused the sudden collapse of such a sophisticated society? The Memic civilization's most iconic remnants are the colossal stone heads weighing up to 40 tons, thought to represent rulers or deities. These heads, carved from basalt and transported from distant quarries, showcase the Olmec's impressive engineering skills. San Lorenzo, one of their primary urban centers, featured ceremonial platforms, pyramids, and large plazas designed with advanced knowledge of urban planning. Theme controlled vast trade networks, and their influence stretched across Mesoamerica. Despite these achievements, the Memic civilization began to decline around 900 BC. San Lorenzo was abandoned, and the advanced urban centers fell into disrepair. What caused this sudden decline? The most commonly accepted explanation is environmental factors, particularly a shift in the region's climate. Theme depended on agriculture, and their settlements were concentrated around rivers like the Coatzacoalcos. These fertile floodplains were vital for crops such as maize, beans, and squash. Researchers suggest that a prolonged drought or flooding may have disrupted the agricultural system, leading to food shortages and social unrest. Evidence of changing river patterns and sediment cores from the region points to significant shifts in water availability during the time of the Olmec decline. Could these environmental changes have overwhelmed the Memic society? It's possible that a series of flooding events or river changes could have damaged agricultural fields, forcing the Olmec to leave their cities in search of fertile land. However, this theory is complicated by the fact that the Olmec had adapted to environmental changes in the past with their advanced water management techniques. Why then did these systems fail when they were needed most? Another widely discussed theory is that internal conflict contributed to the Memic collapse. Theme had a complex political structure with powerful rulers overseeing multiple urban centers.
As the
Empire expanded, internal divisions may have weakened the central authority. Some scholars believe that rival factions or cities may have fought for power, leading to social fragmentation. The shift from San Lorenzo to other centers, such as Levanta, suggests internal political shifts. However, there's little archaeological evidence of widespread warfare or political strife, leaving this theory speculative. Some believe that external pressures, such as competition from rival civilizations, played a role. Theme engaged in trade with other Mesoamerican cultures and the rise of powerful centers. Like the Maya could have disrupted the memes, economic base, the shift in trade routes, or the competition for resources may have contributed to their decline. However, there's minimal evidence to support the idea that external forces significantly challenged themes on a large scale, casting doubt on this theory. More speculative theories propose that a catastrophic event triggered the collapse. Some suggest that a disease or pestilence swept through the population, weakening them to the point where survival became impossible. While there's no direct evidence of such a plague, the idea of an unseen force contributing to the collapse is intriguing. Could disease have been a hidden factor in the downfall of this advanced civilization? Others suggest a more mystical cause, proposing that the meme's decline may have been linked to a religious or spiritual crisis. The Olmec were deeply spiritual, worshipping deities associated with nature, including jaguars. Could a shift in their religious beliefs or a loss of faith in the ruling elite have led to the society's fragmentation? The absence of large ceremonial structures and themes, gradual move away from monumental construction, suggests a change in priorities. But this remains speculative without direct evidence. Another fringe theory connects Themec collapse to a cosmic or celestial event. Could a comet, meteorite, or solar event have triggered widespread devastation? Though there is no direct evidence, ancient cultures often interpreted natural disasters as divine signs. Could themes have seen their downfall as a spiritual reckoning? While intriguing, there is no solid evidence to support such an event. The fall of the Mech civilization remains an enigma. Despite research into environmental, social, and political factors, no single explanation fully accounts for their sudden decline. The Olmec, once a dominant force in Mesoamerica, left behind a legacy of impressive achievements. Yet the reasons for their abrupt fall remain a mystery. Was it environmental disaster, political fragmentation, or something more mysterious, a cosmic or spiritual event? The answers may be buried in the mists of time, waiting to be discovered. As we look to the ruins of San Lorenzo and Levanta, the question remains, what truly caused the end of the Mech civilization? And what secrets of their culture remain hidden from our gaze? High in the cliffs of Colorado, nestled within the rugged terrain of the American Southwest, lie the iconic cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde. These ancient structures carved into the sheer rock faces of the canyon evoke both awe and mystery. Built by the ancestral Pueblones, also known as the Anasazi, these dwellings served as homes to a thriving community for several centuries. From the cliffside, the stone buildings seem almost suspended in time, their walls weathered but still bearing traces of their original inhabitants' artistry and ingenuity. Yet, despite their remarkable preservation, the fate of the ancestral Puebloans remains one of the great mysteries of North American history. By the late 13th century, the people who built and lived in Mesa Verde abandoned their cliff homes, leaving behind no clear explanation. What caused this dramatic desertion of such a sophisticated society? The cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde are masterpieces of ancient engineering. Built between 600 and 300 AD, these structures took full advantage of the natural rock formations. Multi-story buildings with hundreds of rooms were constructed in sheltered aloves, offering protection from the elements and enemies alike. These dwellings included homes and cays, ceremonial spaces for religious and community activities. The ancestral Puebloans were accomplished farmers growing corn, beans and squash in the high desert and irrigating their crops through intricate water management systems. Despite their ingenuity, by the end of the 13th century, the ancestral Puebloans abandoned Mesa Verde, leaving behind their cliffside homes, pottery, tools, and remnants of daily life. The reason for their sudden departure remains a puzzle that has baffled historians for decades. The most widely accepted theory for the desertion centers on environmental factors. Researchers suggest that a prolonged period of drought lasting several decades may have decimated the ancestral Puebloans' agricultural base. The region where Mesa Verde is located is already arid, and the inhabitants relied heavily on seasonal rains to water their crops. As the climate changed, water sources may have dwindled, leading to crop failures and food shortages. Evidence from tree rings and sediment cores indicates that a severe drought struck the region around the time of the desertion, supporting the idea that climate change may have been a key factor in their decision to abandon their homes. But if the drought alone caused the abandonment, why were the people of Mesa Verde able to survive earlier periods of environmental stress? Previous droughts had impacted the region, yet the ancestral Puebloans had adapted by developing advanced farming techniques and water management systems. The abruptness of the departure and the lack of signs of gradual decline raise further questions. Could other factors beyond the environment have played a role in their decision to leave? Another theory suggests that social upheaval or conflict may have contributed to the abandonment. As the population grew, internal divisions or power struggles may have disrupted the stability of the society. Evidence from the ruins suggests that some structures were abandoned hastily. Could this be the result of a breakdown in social cohesion or even warfare among factions? However, the lack of widespread evidence for violent conflict makes this theory less conclusive. If conflict was a factor, it may have been more localized, affecting certain groups rather than the entire society. Some researchers speculate that religious or spiritual changes influenced the decision to leave. The ancestral Puebloans were deeply connected to their land and spiritual beliefs. Could a shift in their religious practices or a loss of faith in their ability to live in harmony with the environment have led to the abandonment of the cliffs? This theory suggests that the people may have left not just for sustenance, but also for spiritual or existential renewal. However, there is no direct evidence to support this idea, making it speculative at best. A fringe theory suggests that the collapse of Mesa Verde could have been influenced by external forces such as migration due to pressure from neighboring tribes or more powerful civilizations. The arrival of groups like the Navajo or Ute could have displaced the ancestral Puebloans, forcing them to leave their homeland. Yet, there's no strong evidence of violent interactions with neighboring groups at the time of their departure, making this theory less likely. The mystery of Mesa Verde's desertion is further deepened by the fact that the ancestral Puebloans did not disappear entirely. Many moved to other areas, including modern-day New Mexico and Arizona, where they continued to thrive. Could their departure from Mesa Verde have been a strategic decision to adapt to a changing environment or new social realities? Or was it a result of some unseen external force that pushed them away from their homeland? As we stand among the ruins of Mesa Verde today, the question remains: what truly caused the abandonment of this once thriving civilization? Was it environmental, social, or something far more mysterious? The cliff dwellings, still standing after centuries, offer few answers but invite endless speculation. The story of the ancestral Puebloans remains incomplete, their legacy preserved in the stones they left behind. What secrets still lie hidden in the ruins of Mesa Verde, waiting to be uncovered? The answers may be lost to time, but the mystery endures, challenging us to explore the unknown depths of history. High in the mountains of Oaxaca, Mexico, the ancient city of Monte Albán rises as a silent sentinel overlooking the valleys below. Once the capital of the Zapotec civilization, Monte Albán was a hub of politics, culture, and religion, flourishing from around 500 BC to 750 AD. Its grand plazas, towering pyramids, and intricate carvings are a testament to the city's sophistication. Yet despite its power, Monte Albán was mysteriously abandoned by the late 13th century. What caused the sudden decline of such a remarkable society? Monte Albán sits atop a mountain, offering a commanding view of the surrounding valleys. The site features broad ceremonial plazas, ball courts, temples, and intricate mosaics reflecting the Zapotec's mastery of urban planning. The city's multi-story buildings, advanced drainage systems, and water management techniques showcased the civilization's engineering prowess. The Zapotecs also developed an early form of writing and were skilled in astronomy, aligning Monte Albán's buildings with celestial events. At its peak, Monte Albán controlled a vast network of cities and towns. Its strategic location allowed the Zapotecs to dominate trade routes and influence surrounding regions. However, by the 8th century AD, the city was abandoned and its once bustling plazas fell silent. What caused the sudden desertion of such a powerful and advanced city? One widely accepted explanation centers on environmental factors. The Zapotecs relied on agriculture and trade for survival, and the fertile valleys around Monte Albán supported their crops. However, studies suggest that the region underwent significant climate changes in the 7th and 8th centuries. A prolonged drought, possibly affecting the seasonal rains needed for agriculture, could have led to crop failure and food shortages. Evidence from tree rings and sediment cores indicates that the region experienced droughts, supporting the idea that a climate shift played a key role in the decline of Monte Albán. Yet the drought theory does not fully explain the suddenness of the abandonment. The Zapotecs had developed advanced irrigation systems that should have helped them adapt to environmental stress. The rapid desertion of the city raises questions. Why was such a resilient society unable to adapt to these changes? Another theory suggests that internal conflict or political instability contributed to Monte Albán's decline. As the city's population grew, social and political divisions may have weakened the centralized authority. The rapid abandonment of the city could be a sign of internal strife or power struggles. Evidence of deliberate abandonment, with some important structures showing signs of disrepair or incomplete construction, suggests that the collapse was sudden, potentially caused by political upheaval. However, there is little direct evidence of widespread conflict, making this theory speculative. A third theory points to external pressures, particularly from rival civilizations. During the 8th century, the Mixtec civilization began to rise in power. Some scholars suggest that the Mixtecs may have displaced the Zapotec, undermining their political and economic dominance. The Mixtecs had growing trade networks and military strength, which could have gradually eroded the Zapotecs' power. While there's no direct evidence of warfare, the changing balance of power may have weakened the Zapotec's ability to maintain control. This theory suggests that the decline of Monte Albán may have been a slow displacement rather than an overt military conquest. Some more speculative theories propose that the decline was caused by religious or spiritual upheaval. The Zapotecs had strong religious beliefs tied to their rulers and deities. Could a shift in spiritual practices or a loss of faith in their religious leaders have led to the abandonment of the city? While fascinating, this idea remains largely speculative, as there's no concrete evidence of a religious crisis driving the people to leave. Another fringe theory suggests that a celestial or cosmic event could have been responsible for the collapse. Some propose that the Zapotecs may have interpreted a natural disaster, such as a comet or earthquake, as divine disfavor, prompting them to abandon their city. However, there's no evidence to support such a catastrophic event. The mystery of Monte Albán's abandonment continues to captivate researchers despite various theories. Climate change, political instability, external threats, or religious shifts. The true cause remains elusive. What caused the sudden decline of this once great city? Why did its inhabitants who built such an advanced urban center leave so abruptly? As the ruins of Monte Albán stand silent, the answers lie buried in time, waiting to be discovered. The fall of the Zapotec civilization raises questions that continue to echo through history. What forces led to the collapse of Monte Albán, and what secrets may still be hidden within its ancient stones? In the ancient world, few events were recorded with as much awe and dread as the mysterious night without stars, a phenomenon noted by Roman historians in 102 BC. On this night, the heavens seemed to fall dark with no stars visible, as if the very fabric of the cosmos had unraveled. The event was not a mere eclipse, nor a typical celestial occurrence, but something so strange that it struck fear into those who witnessed it, leaving a lasting impression on historians. What caused this ominous darkness? And why did it continue to perplex scholars for centuries? Roman records describe the event in eerie terms. Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, described it as a terrible omen that left the people of Rome confused and fearful. Historians noted the unnatural darkness that seemed to engulf the sky, a phenomenon that left a strong impression as a sign of impending disaster. Unlike eclipses or meteor showers, this event couldn't be predicted or explained by contemporary knowledge. The night without stars was reported across the Roman Empire, from the heart of Rome to distant provinces. Some viewed it as a sign from the gods, while others speculated it was a natural phenomenon. But no known astronomical event could explain it. Historians like Ion noted the widespread panic that followed, marking it as a significant moment in Roman history. Yet, despite detailed accounts, no consensus has been reached on its cause. One theory suggests it was caused by a massive atmospheric event such as a dust storm or volcanic ash cloud that obscured the stars, much like modern sky darkening events caused by volcanic eruptions. A large eruption, perhaps from Mount Etna, could have expelled ash high into the atmosphere, creating a haze thick enough to block the stars. In fact, later volcanic eruptions have been known to cause similar starless nights. However, there's no direct evidence that a volcanic eruption occurred in 102 BC, casting doubt on this theory. The absence of volcanic activity near Rome raises questions. But the idea of an atmospheric disturbance, whether from volcanic fallout or a dust storm, remains plausible. Could this rare meteorological event have caused the darkness? One so unusual that even Roman scholars couldn't explain it. Another possibility is that the night without stars was linked to an unprecedented celestial event. Some fringe theories suggest that a passing comet could have caused a disruption in Earth's atmosphere, temporarily blocking the view of the stars. While comets typically don't obscure stars to such a degree, the event could have been caused by a cosmic phenomenon beyond the scope of ancient understanding. Could this event have been the result of a grand-scale cosmic event, one never fully recorded by the Romans? Speculative theories also venture into the supernatural. The ancient Romans, deeply connected to their religious beliefs, often interpreted unusual events as signs from the gods. The night without stars could have been seen as an omen, perhaps signaling disaster or divine displeasure. Ancient cultures often viewed natural phenomena through a spiritual lens, interpreting them as messages or warnings. Could the darkness have been perceived as a signal of an impending calamity, or the loss of power for the Roman Empire itself? Despite these various theories, none fully explained the fear and awe that the night without stars inspired. Was it a rare atmospheric event, or was something more mysterious at play? The widespread documentation of the event, combined with the lack of an explanation, highlights the ongoing mystery surrounding it. As we reflect on this event, we are left with a lingering curiosity about the unexplained darkness that gripped the sky. What truly happened on that night in 102 BC? Was it a natural phenomenon, a celestial event, or an omen interpreted by the Romans as a warning from the gods? Despite centuries of speculation, the cause of the night without stars remains elusive as we continue to explore the mysteries of the universe. We are reminded of the limits of our understanding and the phenomena that still evade scientific inquiry. What other secrets does the universe hold? And what other historical mysteries remain hidden from view? On the windswept shores of Orkney, a group of islands off the northern coast of Scotland, lies the Neolithic village of Skara Brae. Buried beneath layers of sand for millennia, it was rediscovered in the 19th century, emerging like a time capsule from the past. The stone homes, expertly crafted to withstand the harsh elements, remain remarkably well preserved. Skara's people were early farmers living in close-knit communities with sophisticated structures and an impressive understanding of architecture. Yet, despite their ingenuity and prosperity, the village was abandoned around 2500 BC. What happened to the people of Skara, and why did they suddenly disappear? The village's design is remarkable. Each dwelling is built into the earth with stone walls that curve inward to create small, cozy spaces. The furniture, including beds and storage areas, was made of stone and cleverly integrated into the homes. Stone drains and water management systems suggest that the people of Skara Brae were skilled builders and adept at living in harmony with their environment. The village was part of a thriving culture connected by trade networks that stretched across the islands and mainland Scotland. They exchanged goods and ideas with distant lands, further showcasing their advanced social structure. Despite these achievements, the village was abandoned around 2500 BC. What caused this sudden desertion? Archaeological evidence shows no signs of destruction by war or natural disasters. The homes were left intact, with tools and personal belongings, suggesting a life interrupted but not violently ended. The lack of conflict or upheaval raises the question, why did the people leave so suddenly? The most widely accepted explanation is environmental change, Skara Brae. People depended on agriculture, and Orkney's climate was vital to their farming. A prolonged period of drought or cooler, wetter conditions may have disrupted the crops, leading to food shortages. Archaeological evidence suggests that the region underwent climatic shifts during the late Neolithic period, which may have caused crop failures. If these environmental changes affected the Guanches lived on these islands for thousands of years, developing a society with distinct language, customs, and an early form of writing. Yet, despite their once thriving civilization, their written records mysteriously vanished, leaving only fragments of their legacy. What happened to these early records, and why did they disappear? The Guanches were one of the first peoples to inhabit the Canary Islands, arriving long before European explorers. Their society was one of isolation, yet rich in agricultural knowledge, animal husbandry, and a unique writing system. The Guanches writing was used for religious and ceremonial purposes, with symbols etched into stones and clay tablets. Though scarce, these records offered insight into their beliefs and social structure. However, over time, the evidence of their written language faded, leaving scholars puzzled. The Guanche script, often referred to as Guanche script, resembled hieroglyphic symbols and may have been influenced by early North African scripts or possibly the Phoenicians who were active in the Mediterranean. Despite the intriguing traces of this script, few examples remain. Some found on petroglyphs carved into rocks, and others possibly written on perishable materials like parchment or wood, now lost to time. The most significant clue to the mystery comes from early European explorers. In the 14th and 15th centuries, when Europeans first encountered the Guanches, they reported seeing the indigenous people use writing in religious ceremonies. However, by the time the Spanish conquest began in the 15th century, most written records had already vanished. What happened to these records and why did they disappear so suddenly? One theory suggests the Guanches abandoned their writing system before the arrival of the Spanish. As their society became increasingly isolated and less influenced by external cultures, they may have found written records unnecessary. With fewer interactions with outside societies, the Guanches might have shifted to oral traditions, letting their written language fade away. This would explain the disappearance of the script, as it was no longer vital for daily life or religious practices. Another possibility is that the records were deliberately destroyed during the Spanish conquest. The Guanches fiercely resisted Spanish colonization, and their written language could have been seen as a symbol of cultural identity. It is possible that in an effort to protect their traditions, the Guanches destroyed their written texts to prevent the Spanish from using them to control their culture, the Spanish seeking to erase indigenous cultures and convert the Guanches to Christianity may have also played a role in the destruction, either deliberately or accidentally during their conquest. However, no direct evidence confirms whether the Guanches or the Spanish destroyed the written records. The lack of surviving texts raises questions. Did the records simply deteriorate over time, or was there a coordinated effort to erase them? Some fringe theories suggest the disappearance of the Guanches' written records was linked to supernatural or mystical beliefs. Many ancient cultures believed that the written word held spiritual power. It's possible that the Guanches script, integral to their religious practices, was believed to be too sacred to let outsiders access. This theory, though intriguing, remains speculative and lacks concrete evidence to support it. Another theory ties the loss of records to early Mediterranean civilizations like the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were known to travel and trade across the Mediterranean and into the Atlantic. Some scholars propose that the Guanches may have had contact with the Phoenicians or were influenced by their script. However, there is no direct evidence of Phoenician interaction with the Canaries, making this theory speculative at best. The final and perhaps most unsettling theory is that the written records were lost not to time, conquest, or neglect, but to an unknown cause. Why would such a developed society with its own writing system vanish so completely? The mystery surrounding the disappearance of the Guanches written records remains one of the most elusive in ancient history. The Guanches. Early written records continue to captivate historians and archaeologists. What happened to the vast knowledge they once possessed? Was it simply lost to time, or was there a more deliberate effort to erase their history? As we examine the few surviving fragments of their language, we are reminded of how much human history is hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. The mystery of the Guanches and their lost records prompts us to ask, what else might be lost to time waiting to be discovered? And what truths about the ancient world still lie buried beneath the sands of the Canary Islands? In the northern coastal regions of Peru, nestled within the dry valleys of the Mochi River, lie the ruins of the Moche civilization. One of South America's most ancient civilizations, America's most enigmatic cultures, flourishing between 100 BC and 800 A. The Moche were known for their impressive temples, intricate pottery, and elaborate tombs. Their cities, including the Grand Huaca del Sol and Huaca de la Luna, remain towering monuments to their power and creativity. Yet despite their achievements, the Moche civilization mysteriously vanished by the 8th century AD. What caused the sudden abandonment of their thriving cities? The Moche civilization was notable for its complex urban structure, including large ceremonial centers and advanced irrigation systems. They were expert farmers, utilizing water diverted from the Andes to nourish their crops. Their pottery depicted both daily life and religious rituals, and their skilled metal work, especially in gold and silver, attests to their wealth. Moche society was deeply religious, with temples dedicated to gods associated with the sun, moon, and water. However, by the 8th century, these vibrant cities were deserted. Archaeological evidence shows that there were no signs of destruction from war or natural disasters. The homes and monuments were left intact, suggesting the people left suddenly. What could have prompted a civilization with such advanced infrastructure and a rich cultural and religious life to abandon their cities? One of the most accepted theories is that the Moche faced severe environmental changes, particularly catastrophic flooding and drought. The Moche relied on irrigation systems to support their agriculture, but evidence suggests that climate shifts such as prolonged droughts or floods disrupted these systems. The coastal region of Peru, like much of South America, is vulnerable to the El Niño phenomenon, which can cause extreme weather patterns, including floods that damage infrastructure and crops. Archaeological studies of the region show signs of flooding that may have overwhelmed the Moxie's water systems and destroyed their crops, leading to food shortages and social instability. The Moche had faced environmental challenges before, but the scale of these disasters in the 7th and 8th centuries may have been too great to overcome. Without a reliable food supply and with their cities flooded, the Moche may have been forced to abandon their homes. However, while this environmental theory is plausible, it doesn't fully explain the speed of the city's abandonment. Why would such a resilient society known for its advanced water management systems leave so suddenly? Another possibility is that internal social or political unrest played a role in the collapse. The Moche civilization was composed of various city-states, each with its own local leadership. The presence of elaborate tombs like the Lord of Sipon's tomb suggests a hierarchical society with concentrated wealth. Some researchers argue that internal divisions, perhaps between the elite and commoners, could have led to social upheaval. With power and wealth centralized in the hands of the few, economic and political struggles may have weakened the cohesion of Moche society. These internal conflicts, combined with environmental stresses, could have led to the sudden departure from their cities. A theory with less widespread support suggests that external forces, such as invasions from rival cultures, contributed to the Moxie's fall. The rise of the Incas and other cultures in the region could have overshadowed the Moche's dominance, pushing them out. However, there is little archaeological evidence of direct military conflict with neighboring civilizations. It is possible, though, that the Moche were gradually displaced without a major battle, as shifting political and economic dynamics made it harder for them to maintain their power. Some more speculative theories suggest a religious or spiritual reason for the Moche's disappearance. The Moche were deeply religious and their civilization was built around ceremonial practices. Could a shift in spiritual beliefs or a change in religious leadership have caused them to leave? Perhaps the Moche viewed the collapse of their infrastructure as a divine sign, prompting them to abandon their homes and search for new opportunities elsewhere. While fascinating, this theory remains speculative, with no direct evidence linking religious upheaval to the Moxie's departure. Fringe theories propose even more fantastical explanations, such as extraterrestrial involvement or celestial events. Some speculate that the Moche saw a cosmic event like a comet eclipse or unusual star alignment as a warning of impending doom. While such theories are highly speculative, they highlight the power of celestial events in shaping ancient cultures, beliefs, and decisions. Could the Moche have interpreted such events as signs from the gods prompting a mass migration? Despite the various theories, the true cause of the Moxie's abrupt depopulation remains elusive. Environmental catastrophes, internal conflict, and external pressures all provide compelling explanations, but no single factor fully accounts for their sudden disappearance. The ruins of Moche cities, with their towering pyramids, temples, and grand tombs, remain as silent witnesses to a once great civilization. What truly happened to the Moche? Were they driven away by disaster, internal strife, or something more mysterious? The answers may be lost to time, but the questions continue to intrigue historians and archaeologists, leaving us to wonder what secrets remain buried in the sands of the Moche valleys. In the remote reaches of the Horn of Africa lies the once mighty Aksumite Empire, which flourished from around the 4th to the 7th century AD. Located in what is now northern Ethiopia and Eritrea, Aksum was the heart of a vast empire known for its wealth, towering obelisks and extensive trade networks. Aksum was a dominant power controlling trade routes between Africa, Arabia, India, and the Mediterranean. The Aksumite navy was key to their dominance, overseeing the Red Sea and facilitating long-distance commerce. However, by the 7th century, Aksum's maritime power and control over these routes had sharply declined. What caused the fall of this once influential maritime power?
Aksum's rise was built on its control of trade.
The city itself was a marvel featuring grand palaces, monumental tombs, and impressive infrastructure. Through trade in ivory, gold, and frankincense, Aksum amassed wealth and established diplomatic ties with the Roman Empire, India, and even China. The Aksumite navy played a crucial role in securing the Red Sea trade routes, enabling the empire to dominate maritime commerce. Aksum's powerful fleet sailed the waters of the Red Sea, Indian Ocean, and beyond, allowing the empire to thrive as a key player in the ancient world. Yet by the 7th century, Aksum's maritime power had faded. The empire lost control of its naval forces and its trade routes began to wither. What caused this sudden decline? Historians have offered several theories, but no single explanation fully accounts for the collapse of Aksum's fleet and its maritime dominance. The most widely accepted theory points to the rise of Islam in the 7th century. The expansion of the Islamic caliphates dramatically changed the political and economic landscape of the region. As Muslim states grew along the Red Sea and the Arabian Gulf, they disrupted Aksum's control over the trade routes. The expansion of Islamic powers blocked Aksum's direct access to lucrative Mediterranean and Indian Ocean trade. This shift in power combined with the spread of Islam marginalized Aksum's influence and effectively cut it off from key trading partners. The rise of Islam not only impacted trade, but also altered the regional balance of power as Muslim armies gained control of key ports along the Red Sea. Aksum's once thriving trade routes were either redirected or lost entirely. With the loss of these vital links, Aksum's economy faltered, and the Aksumite fleet became increasingly irrelevant. The decline of Aksum's maritime power can thus be seen as a consequence of the changing political and economic landscape. While the rise of Islam offers a plausible explanation, it does not account for the complete disappearance of the Aksumite fleet. No clear evidence points to a military defeat or external invasion, raising the question, did the Aksumites voluntarily abandon their naval pursuits, or was their fleet made obsolete by other factors? One alternative theory suggests that environmental change may have played a role in the collapse. The Aksumite Empire was heavily reliant on agriculture, and evidence indicates that shifts in climate such as prolonged droughts or disruptions in rainfall patterns could have impacted the agricultural base of the economy. A sudden change in climate may have weakened Aksum's capacity to sustain its population and maintain its naval forces. While there is no conclusive evidence for such a dramatic environmental shift, the idea remains a plausible explanation. Another theory posits that internal political instability contributed to the fall of Aksum. By the 7th century, there were signs of fragmentation within the empire. As a collection of powerful city-states, Aksum's internal politics became increasingly unstable. The lack of centralized authority and internal divisions might have weakened the empire's ability to defend its maritime interests and maintain control over trade routes. The loss of focus on naval power, coupled with political infighting, could have contributed to Aksum's decline. Some fringe theories suggest that the Aksumite fleet was destroyed by a natural disaster, such as an earthquake or tsunami. While these theories are speculative, the idea that a catastrophic event could have devastated the fleet is intriguing. However, there is no substantial evidence to support this theory, and it remains a possibility rather than a widely accepted explanation. A more plausible theory is that the Oxumites deliberately shifted away from maritime power in response to external pressures. Faced with the growing dominance of Islamic powers and other regional shifts, the Aksumite rulers may have made the strategic decision to abandon their naval endeavors. Instead, they could have focused on land-based trade or other forms of economic survival. This theory suggests that the disappearance of the fleet was a deliberate choice rather than a result of military defeat or environmental disaster. Despite these various theories, the true cause of the Aksumite fleet disappearance remains elusive. Was it the rise of Islam, environmental factors, political instability, or a strategic shift? The decline of the Aksumite Empire and the loss of its fleet remain one of the great mysteries of ancient history as we look to the ruins of Aksum with its impressive obelisks and the remnants of its once thriving trade routes. We are left to wonder what secrets lie buried beneath the sands of time. The answers may be lost, but the questions continue to intrigue, urging us to delve deeper into the enigma of the Aksumite decline. In the northern coastal regions of Peru, nestled within the dry valleys of the Mokche River, lies the ancient city of Avaris, once the capital of Egypt's foreign rulers, the Hyksos. The Hyksos were a mysterious people who came to power in Egypt during the Second Intermediate Period around 1650 BC. With their distinct culture, chariotry and military innovations, they ruled northern Egypt for over a century, controlling Egypt's wealthiest regions. Yet by 1550 BC, the Hyksos mysteriously retreated from Egypt, abandoning their stronghold in Avars without explanation. What caused the sudden disappearance of this foreign power? The ruins of Avaris, buried beneath the sands of the eastern Nile Delta, tell the story of a once thriving metropolis. Excavations have revealed massive fortifications, royal palaces and foreign artifacts showcasing the Hyksos' control over trade and their military might. They weren't invaders in the traditional sense. They integrated into Egyptian society, adopting its gods, language, and administrative systems while introducing new technologies like the horse-drawn chariot, which would later become a hallmark of Egyptian military prowess. Despite this integration, the Hyksos managed to maintain power for over a century. However, by the mid-16th century BC, the Hyksos were no longer in control. The Thean king Amos led the Egyptians in expelling the Hyksos from Avaris, but the cause of their departure remains a mystery. Why did the Hyksos leave so suddenly without any sustained resistance? The most widely accepted theory is that the rise of Egyptian resistance contributed to the Hyksos retreat. After years of subjugation, the Egyptians rallied under the leadership of Amos, who launched military campaigns against the Hyksos. This theory suggests that the Egyptians, who had been under foreign domination for generations, used their superior military tactics to regain control. Yet, if the Egyptians were the driving force behind the Hyksos' retreat, why did the Hyksos leave so abruptly? Why didn't they put up a fight, especially when their hold on Egypt seemed so secure? One possible explanation is that the Hyksos chose to withdraw voluntarily. The Hyksos had faced internal struggles during their reign, and over time their power may have weakened. Archaeological evidence suggests that the leadership of the Hyksos may have fractured, leading to divisions within their ranks. If their authority was weakening, the Hyksos might have decided to retreat rather than face a prolonged military defeat. Could the loss of support among their own people have led to this decision? Another theory suggests that the geopolitical landscape may have played a role in the Hyksos' retreat. The Hyksos had strong connections with the Levant, and their departure from Egypt could have been influenced by changes in the balance of power in the ancient Near East. Perhaps a rising power in the Levant or another part of the region forced the Hyksos to return to their homeland. Evidence of Hyksos-related material culture found in the Levant supports the idea of a strategic retreat. But if this theory holds, why was the Hyksos' exit so abrupt? And why didn't they attempt to negotiate their continued control in Egypt? Some fringe theories propose more speculative causes for the Hyksos retreat, such as a natural disaster or environmental factors. Could an environmental crisis, like a series of droughts or floods, have affected their ability to maintain control over Egypt's resources? The Nile's flooding patterns were essential to Egypt's agricultural system, and if the Hyksos' control over irrigation and water management was disrupted, it could have led to food shortages or other hardships. While there is no direct evidence of such an event, the possibility of environmental factors contributing to their retreat remains plausible. Additionally, some have suggested that a religious or spiritual shift could have played a role. The Hyksos practiced their own pantheon of gods, and a major shift in religious beliefs or a prophetic event could have prompted them to leave Egypt. While this idea is highly speculative and lacks solid archaeological support, it offers an intriguing perspective on the possible spiritual motivations behind their retreat. The Hyksos may have believed that their time in Egypt had come to an end, or that their gods had forsaken them. Another theory ventures into even more speculative territory, proposing that the Hyksos departure was due to a supernatural or mystical cause. In ancient cultures, unexplained events were often interpreted as omens or signs from the gods. Perhaps the Hyksos saw celestial events such as eclipses or comets as signals of divine displeasure or impending doom. While this idea remains speculative, it speaks to how the Hyksos, like many ancient peoples, may have understood and interpreted extraordinary events. Despite these theories, the true cause of the Hyksos' sudden departure remains elusive. Their swift retreat from Avaris without signs of battle or prolonged resistance has left historians and archaeologists with more questions than answers. What truly caused the Hyksos to abandon their stronghold in Egypt? Was it military defeat, internal collapse, geopolitical shifts, or something more mysterious? The disappearance of the Hyksos and their fleet's sudden loss of power remains one of the great, unsolved mysteries of ancient history. As the ruins of Avaris lie buried beneath the sands, they stand as silent witnesses to the once great power of the Hyksos. Their legacy, though fragmented, continues to captivate researchers. The question of why they left so abruptly lingers, challenging us to explore the untold history of one of Egypt's most influential foreign rulers. What unknown factors might have led to their sudden retreat? And what other secrets about the Hyksos are still waiting to be uncovered? On the southern coast of Peru, where the desert meets the sea, lies the mysterious Pericus Peninsula, home to one of the most enigmatic cultures in ancient Peru, the Paracus. Flourishing between 800 BC and 100 BC, the Paracas are best known for their extraordinary textile artistry. Their elaborate burial sites, such as the necropolis of Paracas, continue to captivate archaeologists. Yet, despite their remarkable achievements, the Paracas civilization mysteriously disappeared by the 1st century BC. What caused their sudden and unexplained retreat? The Paracas are famous for their textiles woven from cotton and alpaca wool and dyed in vibrant colors. Their cloths depicted daily life and religious rituals, and many of these textiles buried with the dead have survived for over 2 millennia, still vibrant against the sands. The Paracas also mastered agriculture, relying on irrigation to sustain crops like maize. They were part of a thriving culture connected to trade networks across the region. However, by around 100 BC, the Paracas vanished. There are no signs of war, invasion, or widespread violence. Their settlements were simply abandoned, and no clear reason has been discovered for their disappearance. Theories abound about what caused the Paracas' sudden end. One common theory centers on environmental change. The Paracas lived in a coastal desert, where their survival depended on irrigation. Evidence suggests that climate shifts such as prolonged droughts or fluctuations in the El Niño phenomenon could have disrupted their agricultural systems. A sudden change in water supply might have caused crop failures, food shortages, and social instability. The Paracas relied heavily on irrigation, and any disruption to that system could have led to the civilization's collapse. However, the Parakas had previously survived environmental challenges, and their sophisticated water management systems suggest that A, shifting climate might not fully explain their abrupt disappearance. Another theory posits that the Parakas were absorbed by neighboring cultures. The rise of the Nazca civilization around the time of the Parakas' decline could have displaced them. The Nazca, known for their geoglyphs and agricultural techniques, might have absorbed the Parakas through migration or cultural assimilation. However, there's little evidence that the Nazca actively sought to conquer the Parakas or that the two cultures shared significant overlaps in material culture. While cultural absorption remains a possibility, the Parakas' disappearance seems too sudden to be explained solely by this theory. A further explanation suggests that internal social or political instability contributed to the Parakas' collapse. The Parakas' society was hierarchical, and with wealth and power concentrated in the elite, it's possible that internal strife or divisions led to the culture's demise. The sudden departure could reflect a breakdown in social cohesion, with rival factions or leadership conflicts prompting the Parakas to abandon their settlements. However, the lack of evidence for widespread violence or political upheaval makes this theory less convincing as a sole cause for their departure. A more speculative theory proposes that the Parakas experienced a religious or spiritual crisis. The Parakas were deeply connected to their spiritual beliefs, as seen in their elaborate burial practices. Perhaps a major change in their religious practices or a perceived divine punishment led the Parakas to abandon their culture. This theory, though interesting, remains speculative, as no solid archaeological evidence supports the idea of a religious upheaval. Some fringe theories delve into even more fantastical explanations, suggesting extraterrestrial influence or a cosmic event. The Parakas' intricate and seemingly otherworldly designs on their textiles have sparked imaginations, and some have speculated that they may have been influenced by forces beyond human understanding. While intriguing, these theories lack substantial evidence and remain in the realm of speculation. The mystery of the Parakas civilization's sudden disappearance remains one of ancient history's great unsolved questions. Despite their remarkable achievements in art, agriculture, and textiles, the Parakas vanished without leaving behind a clear explanation. Was it a result of environmental change, internal conflict, or cultural assimilation? Or was it something more mysterious? The answers may be buried beneath the desert sands, waiting to be uncovered. The disappearance of the Parakas invites us to wonder what other ancient civilizations have left behind secrets that still await discovery. In the mist-covered cloud forests of northern Peru lies the ancient citadel of Quayop, a testament to the Chachapoa civilization. Known as the Cloud Warriors, the Chacha thrived from 800 BC to 1000 AD in the remote Andes, using the mist and mountains to their advantage. Quayop, a massive stone fortress with towering walls and intricate buildings, reveals the Chachapoa's advanced society capable of monumental feats of architecture. Skilled in farming, warfare, and artistry, the Chachaoya lived long before the Inca Empire. Yet their civilization mysteriously vanished after the Inca conquest. What happened to these people? And why did their once thriving culture disappear? Quayop, perched over 9,000 ft above sea level, offers breathtaking views of the surrounding jungle. The citadel, built with limestone blocks, spans nearly 600 km and includes ceremonial centers, military structures, and elaborate tombs. Inside the walls, hundreds of circular stone buildings reflect the Chachapoa's advanced architecture and social organization. Their agricultural expertise was integral to their success, as they cultivated crops through irrigation systems and adapted well to the challenging environment. However, by the 15th century, the Chachapoa civilization fell under the shadow of the Inca Empire. The Incas, expanding their territory through military conquest, absorbed the Chachapoa into their empire. Initially, the Inca rulers respected the Chachapoa for their military prowess, but tensions arose as the Chachapoa was slowly assimilated. By the early 16th century, The Inca had fully integrated the Chachapoa into their empire, and their culture began to fade. Yet the question remains, what caused the Chachapoa's sudden disappearance after their assimilation? One common theory attributes their decline to the Inca conquest. The Chachapoa, fiercely independent and skilled in warfare, resisted Inca rule. The Inca general Rumani Hui is believed to have led a successful siege of Quaylop, eventually forcing the Chachapoa to submit. Once conquered, the Chachapoa were integrated into the Inca system, and their distinct culture was overshadowed by Inca governance, language, and religion. However, the sudden abandonment of Quaylop and other Chachapoa settlements raises questions. Why was there no prolonged resistance? And why were these cities completely deserted? Some archaeologists suggest that the Chachapoa may have suffered from internal conflict. The Chachapoa lived in a rugged, isolated
region, and their society may have been fractured by social or
political divisions, a shift in leadership or power struggles within the elite could have weakened their unity. If internal unrest was combined with mounting pressure from the Inca, the Chachapoa may have chosen to abandon their cities. However, there is little concrete evidence of widespread violence or division among the Chachapoa, making this theory speculative. Another possible explanation points to environmental change. The Chachapoa depended on agriculture and irrigation to sustain their civilization. Evidence suggests that the region experienced periods of climate instability, such as prolonged droughts, which could have disrupted the water supply and agricultural productivity.
Soil erosion and reduced
agricultural output could have further stressed their society, making them more vulnerable to external conquest. Although the Chachapoa were adaptable and skilled in resource management, such a dramatic environmental shift might have rendered their region untenable. Disease is another factor that could have contributed to the Chachapoa's downfall. The Andean civilizations had no immunity to diseases brought by Europeans, such as smallpox, which spread rapidly through indigenous populations in the 16th century. The Inca Empire, which had begun its expansion across the Andes, could have inadvertently brought diseases that decimated the Chachapoa population, making them more susceptible to conquest and weakening their social fabric. However, evidence connecting disease directly to the Chachapoa's collapse is scarce. A more speculative theory suggests that the Chachapoa may have voluntarily retreated into the cloud forests of the Amazon basin to escape the Inca threat. Known for their knowledge of the dense jungle, the Chachapoa might have used their environment to flee to remote areas, seeking refuge in the more inaccessible parts of the region. However, no evidence has been found to support this theory, and the complete abandonment of their cities makes it unlikely that they simply moved to new areas. What makes the disappearance of the Chachapoa so mysterious is the lack of written records or clear documentation. Unlike other civilizations such as the Maya or Aztecs, the Chachapoa left no accounts of their decline, leaving us with only their impressive architecture and artifacts. The complete disappearance of such a complex society with no clear explanation adds to the enigma. Today, the ruins of Quaylop stand as silent witnesses to the once great Chachapoa civilization. Despite the various theories, Inca conquest, internal conflict, environmental change, disease, or even voluntary migration, the true cause of their disappearance remains elusive. What led to the fall of the Chachapoa, a people who thrived in the mountains for centuries? As we continue to study the remains of their civilization, the mystery persists, inviting further exploration into the fate of the cloud warriors and the secrets they left behind. In the rugged landscape of Sardinia, where the desert meets the sea, lies the mystery of the Nuragic civilization, a society that flourished from around the 18th century BC to the 3rd century BC. Known for their architectural ingenuity, the Nuragic people constructed massive stone towers called Nur, which dotted the island like silent sentinels. These structures, built with intricate precision, served as both defensive and ceremonial sites. The civilization they left behind remains one of the most enigmatic in the ancient world. Despite their advanced culture, remarkable feats of architecture and strategic location, the Neuragic civilization mysteriously vanished, leaving behind few clues to their fate. What caused the sudden end of the Neuragic civilization? And why did this once thriving society collapse so abruptly? The most iconic feature of the Neuragic civilization is the Nurak, large stone towers that served a variety of purposes from military defense to religious ceremonies. Some of these structures reached heights of up to 20 meters and were strategically placed throughout the island. The Nurik were built using large limestone blocks, demonstrating the advanced architectural skills of the Neuragic people. Inside these towers, circular stone dwellings and elaborate residential areas can still be seen, reflecting the sophistication of the society. The Neuragic people also created intricate pottery, bronze statues, and had well-developed trade networks, exchanging goods across the Mediterranean. At its peak, the Neuragic civilization was engaged in agriculture, animal husbandry, and maritime trade. Sardinia's fertile land and coastal access allowed the people to thrive. The island's resources, such as grain, olives, and pottery, were in high demand, and the Neuragic civilization played a vital role in Mediterranean commerce. However, by the 3rd century BC, the island's once thriving communities were abandoned, and the Nurug, which had once stood as symbols of the civilization's power and influence, were left silent. What caused the collapse of such a sophisticated society? One of the most widely accepted theories for the fall of the Neuragic civilization is environmental change. Sardinia's landscape is a blend of rugged mountains and fertile valleys, and the people relied heavily on agriculture for sustenance. Shifts in the climate, such as droughts or changes in rainfall patterns, may have led to crop failures, destabilizing the food supply. Archaeological evidence suggests that Sardinia experienced a period of climatic instability during the time of the Neuragic collapse, possibly including droughts or unusual shifts in the El Niño phenomenon. This environmental stress could have strained agricultural systems, leading to food shortages, malnutrition, and a population decline. However, the theory of environmental collapse doesn't fully explain the suddenness of the abandonment. The Neuragic people were resilient and adaptive, with advanced irrigation techniques and a deep knowledge of their environment. If environmental changes had caused crop failures, why would the Neuragic civilization collapse so quickly with no signs of gradual decline? Could there have been additional social or political factors at play? Another theory points to social or political instability as a contributing factor to the fall of the Neuragic civilization. Sardinia's population grew over time, and as communities became more complex, tensions between different groups or factions may have led to internal strife. The Neuraj, which once symbolized unity and strength, could have become centers of power struggles. The collapse of the society might have been a result of internal conflict, possibly between rival groups seeking control of dwindling resources. However, there is little direct evidence of widespread warfare or political instability, and the extent to which these factors played a role remains speculative. Some scholars have also proposed that external factors such as invasion or colonization by outside powers may have contributed to the decline. The Phoenicians, followed by the Carthaginians, and later the Romans, began to exert influence over the Mediterranean during the time of the Neuragic decline. Could these foreign powers have displaced the Neuragic civilization and taken control of their resources? Though evidence of military conquest is limited, the increasing presence of foreign powers in the region may have undermined the Neuragic people's ability to defend their land. In addition, a more speculative theory suggests that the Neuragic people may have undergone a cultural or religious shift. The Nurk were not only centers of power, but also integral to the people's spiritual and religious practices. Could a change in their belief systems or a loss of faith in their gods have led to the abandonment of their cities? A significant event such as the arrival of a new religious ideology or a prophetic omen might have caused the population to abandon their ancient way of life. While this theory remains speculative, it reflects the deep connection between belief systems and societal collapse in ancient civilizations. The sudden disappearance of the Neurologic civilization with its remarkable achievements and advanced infrastructure raises many questions. Was it environmental changes, internal conflict, external invasion, or a religious transformation that caused the collapse? The idea of a combination of factors, climatic shifts, political instability, and social upheaval, offers a plausible explanation. But the exact cause remains elusive. Today, the ruins of the Neurig stand tall against the windswept Sardinian landscape, silently guarding the secrets of the civilization that once thrived there. The mystery of their sudden abandonment continues to captivate historians and archaeologists. What happened to the people who built such impressive structures? Why did they vanish so quickly from the historical record? While the answers may be lost in the sands of time, the legacy of the Neurologic civilization remains, inviting us to explore the unknown forces that may have led to its downfall. The secrets of the Neurologic people buried in the stones and sands of Sardinia still await discovery. In the sun-drenched landscape of Crete, where the Iron Sea meets rugged mountains, the ancient Minoan civilization once flourished, leaving behind some of the most intriguing mysteries of the ancient world. Among these is the enigma of Linear A, a writing system used by the Minoans for centuries, which remains undeciphered to this day. This script, which appeared on numerous clay tablets and pottery, was used for administrative and ceremonial purposes. Despite its prominence, the ability to read or fully understand it has been lost to history. Scholars have spent over a century attempting to crack the code of Linear A, but the reason for its disappearance remains unclear. What happened to the knowledge of Linear A, and why did it vanish so completely? Linear A was discovered in the early 20th century, found on clay tablets unearthed. At the Minoan palace of Ensos, the script was in use, primarily from the 17th to 15th centuries BC before being replaced by its successor, Linear B. Linear B was deciphered in the 1950s and shown to represent an early form of Greek, but Linear A stubbornly resisted all attempts at interpretation. Despite hundreds of inscriptions, no scholar has been able to connect the symbols of Linear A to any known language. This has made it one of the most perplexing linguistic puzzles in ancient history. The Minoan civilization itself was one of the most advanced in the ancient Mediterranean. Known for their palaces at Knossos, Phistos, and Malea, the Minoans excelled in art, architecture, and trade. Their vibrant frescoes, intricate pottery, and well-developed urban centers attest to a highly organized and prosperous society. The Minoans were active traders, exchanging goods across the Mediterranean and even establishing diplomatic relations with ancient Egypt. Yet, despite these achievements, the written records of the Minoans, particularly their use of Linear A, have disappeared almost completely, leaving only a shadow of their once thriving civilization. One of the leading theories for the decline of the Minoan civilization and the disappearance of Linear A is the collapse of the society around 1450 BC. This collapse is often attributed to a combination of natural disasters, internal strife, and external invasion. The eruption of the Thera volcano, which caused massive destruction across the Iron World, is thought to have had a catastrophic impact on the Minoans. The eruption and subsequent tsunamis could have devastated the Minoan economy and society, disrupting trade routes and agricultural systems. This natural disaster could have played a significant role in the abandonment of Minoan palaces and the eventual decline of their civilization. However, while the natural disaster theory provides a compelling explanation for the fall of the Minoans, it does not fully account for the disappearance of Linear A. If the Minoans were so advanced, why would they abandon a writing system that had been crucial to their administration and culture? Some scholars believe that after the fall of the Minoan society, the knowledge of Linear A was simply lost as the survivors were absorbed into the Mycenaean culture, which used Linear B. This theory suggests that the Manoans gradually abandoned their own traditions, including their written language in favor of the Mycenaean system, leading to the extinction of Linear A. Another theory proposes that the Manoans may have deliberately suppressed or abandoned their writing system as part of a broader cultural or religious shift. The Manoans were deeply spiritual people with elaborate rituals and a pantheon of gods. Some researchers suggest that the sudden abandonment of Linear A could be linked to a religious or cultural upheaval. As the Manoans faced crises such as natural disasters and foreign invasions, they may have sought a new spiritual direction, abandoning the old ways, including the script as part of this transformation. This theory is supported by the idea that cultures undergoing profound changes often abandon old traditions and symbols in an effort to redefine themselves. In addition to cultural shifts, some scholars speculate that the disappearance of Linear A could be linked to the rise of the Mycenaean Greeks. The Mycenaeans were the dominant power in the Iron after the Manoans' decline, and their use of Linear B as a script for administrative purposes could have led to the abandonment of Linear A as the Minoans extended their influence. It's possible that they replaced the Minoan system with their own, causing Linear A to fall into disuse. However, this theory doesn't explain why Linear A was not preserved in any form by the Mycenaeans or their successors. A more speculative theory points to the possibility of an external influence, perhaps even from outside the Mediterranean world. Some have suggested that the Minoans could have been in contact with other ancient civilizations, such as the Phoenicians, and that their writing system may have been based on foreign ideas or influences. According to this theory, the fall of the Minoan civilization might have also meant the loss of knowledge of these external influences, leading to the eventual disappearance of Linear A. Despite these theories, the true reason for the disappearance of Linear A remains elusive. The lack of a Rosetta Stone-like discovery to provide a key to the script, as was the case with Egyptian hieroglyphs and Linear B, means that scholars are still working with only partial evidence. While there have been attempts to compare Linear A with other scripts such as Linear B and various Semitic languages, no breakthrough has been made. The lack of a concrete solution leaves the script and the civilization that used it shrouded in mystery. As we examine the fragments of Linear A preserved in archaeological sites and museums, we are left with the haunting question of what knowledge, culture, and history have been lost to time. The disappearance of the Minoan script and the civilization that used it remains one of the most tantalizing mysteries of the ancient world. Will we ever unlock the secrets of Linear A, or will it remain a puzzle for future generations to solve? The mystery endures, leaving us to wonder what other ancient secrets may still be hidden in the sands of history.